Hello and welcome to the Whiskey Lodgecast. It's been a few weeks and I'm happy to be back. Um, I think Ian will be joining us in a bit, but for now we've put some effort into making the stream a little bit more with more pixels that are our faces and less pixels that are branding of various sorts. And we're probably going to be switching back to the old stuff if Ian joins, but this way there's less sort of dead space on the screen. So that'll be cool. Um, None of us had any time to prep anything today, so we're gonna go completely off the cuff, which actually seems to work pretty well for us.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm gonna get right on into what I'm drinking today. First of all, as usual, I didn't finish my afternoon tea. Gonna mute my computer over there.
I went with the cheap and easy caffeine, which is Coca-Cola, because I got out of work less than an hour ago. Um, I I didn't work too long a shift today. Uh, I only did noon to 9:40 ish. Hopefully, we're audible.
Can confirm we are. I just did the sound check.
Okay, excellent. It just occurred to me that I had just sort of started rambling because I'm allergic to dead air
No,
and
that's
hoped
that's
that
a good instinct because here I am trying to be producer after 2 weeks away and forgetting how everything works.
that's okay.
Um,
I forget my name if people don't yell at me. Whew. But yeah, so things have been different. You've been overseas. I got promoted.
nice.
Weird.
I'm glad that came through because last I remember that was like a maybe it's gonna happen kind of thing.
Yeah. HR finally got things pushed through. I don't know why it took so long, other than that. Like at one point, there was literally just yeah, hit OK on a form that my boss's boss had to wait, hold on. One more boss
Yeah, take your time.
had to yeah had to click, and they went out of town for a day. Like,
Mm.
normally it's a, oh yeah, because they can do everything on mobile now, it doesn't matter, but they were like a day like away from computers and everything because they had something that they had to do. um and they forgot to do it before they left, and then when they got back it wasn't top of mind, apparently. um
Yeah,
but
it sucks to be told that, but on the other hand, you can kind of understand.
oh yeah, like, I just I just wish that there was, like, it wasn't just a, yeah, this one guy who's got a million things on his plate has to do this one thing where he pushes a button and makes a thing happen. You know what I mean?
Well, I spent 4 days not procrastinating, but basically just forgetting to print out a form, sign it, scan it, and send it back. And like, luckily, nothing bad happened because of the delay. Because like for various reasons, that series of paperworks that culminated in me sending in that form has been delayed for like 6 weeks. They're like, delay,
Ah,
delay, delay. And I was like, hey, you guys, you want to get that form to me before I go out of town for 2 weeks? And they're like, no, don't worry, there's no form. And then a day after I got on the plane, they sent me an email. They're like, hey, so you have to send us this form. And I was like, I literally called you and I called you and I said, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. So send me this form that you're going to definitely send me
mm-hmm,
before I leave. They're like, no, 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 don't
mm-hmm.
worry, there's no form. And then I was like, so I had to designate someone else who should not have been the one interacting with these people to tell them the person you're trying to get in touch with is currently in China and does not have access to a scanner or a fax machine, let alone a printer.
Mm-hmm.
Who has these things anymore?
Yeah. So, want to hear something really funny? Um, the place where I work has a fax machine, and on more than one occasion since I've worked there in the last 2 years, we have had to either fax another location a copy of a piece of paperwork, or um, or get it faxed to us because either for whatever reason we couldn't scan it and email it, or they couldn't scan it and email it.
Ugh. It's just really upsetting to me that like they won't just accept photos of a form that's been filled in, right? Like that's
Yeah,
the most galling thing. It's like it's okay if you scan it, but you absolutely can't take pictures. You know what I did? I used a scanner app on my phone to take
yeah,
a picture and make it
yeah,
look like it was scanned because I don't have a scanner handy. Like we do actually have a USB scanner,
yeah.
but like it's a hassle to set it up. I have to like grab it out of the closet, install the software.
Be
So
like, oh shoot, I need that cable. Where is that cable?
yeah, and then and I just there was one time where I had to fax. Literally, they would only accept a fax, and I said, I don't have a fax machine. I don't have like it's not a trivial thing to get a fax machine because you need a phone line for it.
Yeah.
I could like
Oh, and you can't do it over fiber optic.
yeah, whatever. Like there's so many things that you can't do with fax. Like fax machines still exist and some people want things like by fax machine. And here's the thing. A fax machine is equivalent to printing out a document that somebody sent you any other way. It just
Yep.
is, right? The only
Hmm.
difference being that it didn't come from a phone number, it came from an email or whatever. So there was a person I was like, "Look, I'm not going to be able to like I would have to like find, I don't know, a Kinko's or something to fax you this form. And that's so far out of my way. I'm not willing to spend that time and that money because you're unwilling to accept an email. So here's what you're going to do. I'm going to send you this PDF. You're going to print it out and you're going to put it in the output tray of a fax machine and pretend I faxed it to you."
I mean, it works.
And they're like,
I
"That doesn't seem right." And I'm like, "Nobody's going to know the difference. Just do it."
Yeah, yeah. So we have various policies at work. One of which is we can't take credit card payments over the phone for obvious reasons. Because I mean, you know,
Yeah.
um, but there we can accept payment if like we're doing it through um uh through an online order. And there was something that we needed to do a purchase for. So we did the online order over the phone. It went through, and then we returned that for credit on account, used the credit on account in the other system to do the thing in store.
It's just moving numbers on paper or
Yeah,
spreadsheets. Tell people this all the
yeah. I
time.
mean, and I absolutely understand why we can't do uh, credit cards over the phone, but basically all we did was an online order. Um, but because of how slow the system is in terms of allocating resources, and because our system seems like it has basically a random number generator where it's like, what store does this order actually need to source from, even though the store that it's getting delivered to has some in stock. Spin the wheel, bingo, the store in Las Vegas, or White Plains, or, you know, somewhere else. Anyway, enough grousing about work.
Yeah, sorry. I'm gonna stop looking at other things that are showing up in my screens. Um, I stopped work early today, and yet like the long tail of messages keeps coming in as it does. I have to remember to
Oh yeah.
close everything, or I get distracted. Yeah, sure. Everyone can relate to that. So yeah, let me talk about what other thing that occurred to me to make to drink tonight. So for my whiskey this evening, um, this is by no means the capper of the evening, but I made myself an old fashioned, but this was a one ingredient old fashioned, kind of. It's kind of a two ingredient old fashioned, except that I mixed it ahead of time, so it's sort of a pre-mixed old fashioned.
Hmm.
Um, I could have put bitters in it. I decided not to. But basically, I don't know if you're looking at stream, Phil. Um,
I am currently.
yeah, I have the Kirkland Canadian whiskey. It's a 6-year-old Canadian
Ah.
whiskey. This is a perfectly fine whiskey. This is like a high like a 4 plus to 5 out of 10, right? Like a perfectly
Mhm.
fine, nothing wrong with it whiskey. A little bit of that, it's a Canadian whiskey. It has a little bit of that thin chemical, um, shiny note. Uh,
Yeah.
but other than that, it's perfectly fine. It tastes like almost nothing, right? Um, it tastes like the almost nothing of whiskey, right? It does taste like whiskey. It tastes like a whiskey version of almost nothing. You know what I mean?
So basically, like the standard Canadian club, because that's basically what standard Canadian club is to me.
This is almost certainly rebottled Crown Royal or Canadian Club. I don't know my Canadian whiskeys well enough to make that determination based on taste,
We
and it
should
certainly
do
doesn't say.
we should do at some point a budget whiskey rally
Yeah.
where we like once a week we just pick a country, pour like little samples, pick a budget whiskey we like from there.
Yeah. I
Oh,
well, I just put all of my whiskey away like yesterday because I needed to clean up.
yeah.
But I do have handy a fair number of budget whiskeys and blendeds. I feel like we should do a blended Scotch episode just because whiskey nerds pay so little attention that it almost feels worth it. And yes, we both have that bottle. We could do that today because we both have it.
Oh yeah, we could.
Um,
I'm just
do
thinking about
people
all
like?
the
There's like nobody in chat today because we started
yeah,
2.5 hours late. Um,
yeah, sorry.
do people like when I read labels? Because I can read this label real quick because there's not a whole lot of words.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Kirkland Signature blended Canadian whiskey. Kirkland Signature Canadian whiskey is made by our master distiller from only the highest quality grains and pristine spring water. Now, when it's Kirkland brand, who is our master distiller? Interesting question. The highest quality grains and pristine spring water, this whiskey is velvety smooth with an enormous bouquet of complex vanilla, honey, spice, and toasted oak aromas. The initial sweet nutty character is followed by a rich creamy taste with a slightly spicy finish. None of that is incorrect. It's just that the volume is turned way down from what you might expect from reading the bottle. All that said, this is one of the first things that I bought again, besides Wild Turkey. Before I got into whiskey reviewing, I bought a bottle of this. Probably it may either I just didn't have the context or it was actually better before, but it was really good. All my guests loved it. It was great for Thanksgiving. Uh, something to sip on all evening. Put it in the what do we call it? The cranberry relish. We have this recipe. It's basically
Yeah,
cranberries, whole oranges, including the peels, and a ton of sugar. So it's just like whole
yep.
cranberries, whole oranges, and white sugar. Blend that up, and then put some booze in it. Usually bourbon. But one year we did use this. Um, Usually wild turkey because it just has like the right spiciness to sort of stand out and punch through. And that whiskey blends all those flavors together and adds that extra complexity that would otherwise be missing. And it's just like a quarter cup of whiskey, like not a lot. It's like
Yeah,
it's like three or
yeah.
four cups of relish and a quarter cup of whiskey. But like that little whiskey spike makes it absolutely delicious. We don't do the canned cranberry sauce thing. Some people think that's the definition of Thanksgiving. And I say, we, in war times when everything had to be in a can, sure, but it's 2023, y'all, or since 2018 or something we've been doing. Probably not earlier than that because
Yeah.
2015 we've basically been saying probably earlier than that. Y'all, it's the 21st century, okay? It's time that we elevate our Thanksgiving dishes, okay? Cranberry relish,
I
not
mean,
not cranberry sauce shaped like a can.
I will say that like we do both. Like we've got like a recipe that's similar, whole cranberries, um, and not as much sugar. Ours is real tart. Um, and we do like sliced up oranges. Um, and we also do something with that's like sort of cranberry apple and then crisp like I want to say oats or something. It takes up a little bit of the moisture of
Hmm.
the cranberries and apple chunks, and it's got like apple pie spices in it, and it's really good. Also very tart.
That reminds me of what did we call it? Um, want to say like apple crumble or something, but it had like a cool name.
Hmm. I know what you're thinking of. I can't tell you what the cool name is.
Anyway, it was basically a tray bake that was like an exploded apple pie.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool stuff. We used to go to an orchard and get like 4 dozen apples every fall.
So
We gonna do that,
I do have.
or should I finish? Let me finish talking about this thing that I have in my glass right
Yes.
now,
Sorry.
which isn't
Sorry.
actually this, right? So this I've had this for 2 years, and before today it was still up past the shoulder. Because so my point in this is very good whiskey, right? Don't get it in your head that this is bad whiskey by any means. It's just perfectly average, competent whiskey. That the volume is turned down so low that compared to the other things I drink, it tastes like almost nothing. That said, because this is a good whiskey and because it is a blank canvas, this makes for an excellent base for infusions of various
I
sorts.
see.
Do your cocoa nibs, your cinnamon sticks, whatever. Like you just do, you want whiskey infused something or something whiskey that's infused with something is a great place to start because this is geez, $35 or $25 for this entire handle, right? It's
That's
like
a pretty good price.
it's a great deal. And like if you're the sort of person who wants to go to the store and buy cheap, smooth whiskey, I can recommend this. I hate using the word smooth as a compliment for whiskey because it feels lazy, but and that's kind of
I
how a
mean,
lot of people in our circles view the word smooth. But like as far as there are certain products, their job is to be smooth, and this does that.
it's sort of like the whole smooth doesn't really mean anything for something that does not have much physical texture. Ooh, is that
Yeah.
just maple syrup and Canadian whiskey?
Yeah, exactly. So I finished this bottle of maple syrup, which was Crown, not Crown Royal, select quality Crown maple syrup. We got this from Costco, but it's not a Kirkland brand. Um,
Mhm.
this is bourbon barrel aged maple syrup. If I'm not mistaken, it is from. It says Hudson Valley, New
Vermont.
York. I don't know if the maple syrup
Oh,
came from New York. You would think Vermont. In this case, it looks like it is New York. So,
oh,
yeah.
interesting.
Crownmaple.com if anyone's interested. We're not sponsored. I just happen to be reading
However,
the label. However, if anyone wants to sponsor us, yada yada yada. So anyway, what I did, I finished this bottle and I was like, well, there's like a whole bunch of this is a whole whiskey bottle sized for the look, right? It's
mhm,
whiskey infused maple syrup already.
yeah,
So they did a whole whiskey bottle sized thing, and by the time I was done with that, there was just a ton of maple syrup, sugar, and residue on the inside of this, and I said it'd be a shame if I just soaked that and then recycled it. I should
yeah,
instead soak it with whiskey and use that for
absolutely.
cocktails. And it turns out that it had basically just the right amount of maple syrup in here to add that maple sweetness that you want in a maple old fashioned without being way too overpowering. So like so one ingredient old fashioned, pour this on the rocks. That's what I did. Long way to say I made myself a maple old fashioned the long and lazy way.
I mean, you had to go through the effort of eating lots of waffles and pancakes to use up all that maple syrup.
True, believe it or not, 80% of that bottle went to oatmeal.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, overnight
I like
oats.
oatmeal with maple syrup.
Yeah. Overnight oats with maple syrup in the soaking liquid, right? It's like oat milk and maple syrup,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, lots of that. You end up using a lot of maple syrup that way, and quickly realize that overnight oats are not that healthy if you put sugar in them.
Yeah. All the best foods are healthy foods that you ruin with lots of like sugars
But look, if I make
or
it from
blood
scratch,
sweeteners.
at least I know exactly the extent to which I ruined it.
Yeah, yeah. But you know what I mean.
If we start with stuff that was made with a substance that is banned in most of Europe, high fructose corn syrup,
Yeah.
we're not starting
That's
out too well.
no.
Hey,
No,
there's an
definitely
interesting
not.
bit of news I heard, totally
Oh.
unrelated to whiskey. Um, Apropos of nothing, which is the hilarious part of this news story. Apropos of nothing, the FDA classified aspartame as possibly carcinogenous,
Yes.
which means they've made no decision whatsoever on the topic. And that's
Yeah,
been the
it
case for the
it
last
means
20 years.
nothing.
they,
It's one of those, like,
they made a
we have
statement to
not made a
say
decision.
they made a statement to say nothing.
Yeah, pretty much. I will say, for the record, I am allergic to it. If I drink Diet Pepsi or some other diet sodas, I have difficulty breathing.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's not fun. Um,
This glass is sweating up a storm. I'm gonna put a paper towel between my glass and the coaster. Oh yeah, okay,
uh,
cool. So that's what I'm drinking. What are you drinking, Phil?
well, so I have before me a quandary.
Hmm.
Your mention of budget blended scotch made me think about the budget blended scotch that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have before me 6 bottles of blended scotch.
Oh, did you just like go collect them while I was talking?
Yeah.
Great.
Um, I've got the regular Dewar's white label,
Okay. I haven't had that in a
which
real. Oh! I have a sample of that. So me saying I
woohoo,
haven't had that in a long time doesn't matter. I got it right here.
I've got the Dewar's.
Tiny Dewar's
Uh,
white label, official sample.
ooh, nice. I've got the French cask smooth, which is finished in Calvados casks or Calvados. Depends on who's saying it, I think. I have the Dewar's uh, Caribbean smooth rum cask finish. I have the Dewar's Portuguese smooth port cask finish. Hold on, I'm almost there.
Uh-huh.
The Dewar's Illegal smooth mezcal finish.
Right.
And the Japanese smooth Mizunara oak finish.
Right. So I have the latter two, and I have had the Portuguese smooth as well. I can't remember if I've ever had the Caribbean smooth. And I really want the French oak smooth. I wanted that, but like it just never fit in the budget while it was in the stores. I don't know if they still have
Yeah,
it in the stores. It sounds like this whole series is meant to be semi-permanent, but like
yeah, that
some of them
was.
more often than others, I'm not sure.
So I know that at one point they were talking about how, this is a great opportunity for them to explore their different avenues for diversifying their line and creating new and interesting products, which I am 100% down for. But some of them, like the Japanese smooth in particular, Mizunara oak is extremely hard to get, extremely expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like this price pointed at, I think,
$35.
yeah.
At least in
I
my
think it was
area. For
even
you, it was probably
less.
cheaper. But for me,
Yeah,
it was
for me it was
35.
like 27, $28 after tax. I mean,
Oh yeah,
that's going to
I'm
be
saying
hard for
after
them.
tax because tax is crazy here. Yeah, I think it is
Yeah,
under 30 on the shelf, even here
yeah.
in Washington. Yeah.
I mean, and when you look at like, so I think that the cost that Joe quoted me when I asked them, theoretically speaking, how much would it cost to make a Gary Oak barrel to ship to Virginia to age a rye whiskey in before shipping back to him. He said that they typically cost between $3,000 and $4,000. But that is Gary Oak, which is a rarer, more expensive sort of oak and protected in some areas.
Endangered in Washington.
Yes. And it is um, basically a bespoke barrel that is built to be used over and over and over again. Whereas a lot of bourbon barrels are sort of just put together, and after they age the bourbon, they'll sell it to a Scotch distiller who will use it for 8 to 12 years, and then it gets broken down and scrapped.
That
But it depends
that makes a lot of
because,
sense. I hadn't thought about that particular angle of bourbon is all new charred oak. The implication of that being it only has to last for the 6 years it's going to do the aging of the bourbon,
right,
and then it's somebody else's problem. And this makes me wonder, is this the reason that hogsheads are a thing? Where you rebuild an American standard barrel into into a slightly larger shape made of different staves?
I would assume so, because especially since, you're basically a barrel broker is shipping like container loads of barrels, sometimes even container loads of broken down barrels to be more space efficient to Scotland. Um, like I've seen pictures of a barrel yard at a cooperage somewhere in Scotland where they had like Maersk containers with like stacks of staves in them like this,
Yeah.
like just stacked, sort of crisscross.
There was a
And
time where shipping meant you wanted to be as space efficient as possible. And so deconstructing the barrels made them more efficient to ship empty.
right,
But my understanding is these days, and so Scotch whiskey is actually moving away, as I understand it. They're moving away from the hogsheads rebuilds and just sticking with the American standard barrels that they receive because
right.
shipping these days is by weight.
Mhm.
Because the
So
actual cost of moving stuff in containers is usually the weight, not the amount of empty space, or not the amount of
right,
full space. It's not the amount of stuff moving, it's the weight that's moving.
but the side effect of the fact that American standard barrels tend to be a little bit fragile and not made to last is that frequently one of the reasons why hogsheads developed is because they could take, oh, this barrel's got like three cracked staves, pull those out, break down another barrel that's got broken staves, combine them to make one good barrel. Um, and also, American barrels are cheap, so I mean, well, sort of. Um, and so a lot of Scotch distilleries actually buy the barrels, lease them to a bourbon distillery or a rye distillery or whatever, and then after they're done, they get returned to, or not returned, but they get shipped off to their actual owner. I'm trying to remember who it was that was doing that with a handful of smaller distillers in Kentucky. Um, I want to say it was one of the independent distilleries in Scotland, but I can't think of who it was.
Anyway, maybe it'll come to you. On the
Maybe,
on the
probably
topic
not.
of container shipping, I figured I should just throw this recommendation out there. I posted it in chat. There is a book called The Box by Mark Levinson. Levinson, Mark with a C. Um, I have only gotten about 10% of the way through that book and then stopped reading for I don't know why. Because it was a good book. I think I just like I wanted to read nonfiction, so I put away. I mean, I wanted to read fiction, so I put away my nonfiction book and kind of forgot to come back to it. But it is a really good book. It talks about the history of shipping things across the sea, and the people who work the docks and all that, and the modernization to standard sized container box, and how that's revolutionized the world and how we buy things. Um, Really good book. Um, apropos of any topic that involves consuming things that came from other countries, such as we do, whiskey from Scotland and everywhere else.
That reminds me of a probably apocryphal. Why are barrels barrels? So that you could knock them over and roll them instead of having to lift them.
Yeah,
Which,
I
by
don't
the
know if
way,
they mentioned that in that book, but that is definitely mentioned in the history of whiskey, which is not
um,
a book per se, but there are books on the
yeah,
topic.
I will say that having had to roll heavy things, that doesn't necessarily make it as much easier as you might think.
Did you get? Have you ever gotten to roll a barrel at a distillery?
I have not. I have only visited two distilleries to date,
Wow.
which is a shame. I need to visit more because I am such a nerd about it.
One,
But
two.
nope, three. I visited three because I've been to Catoctin Creek a couple times, three or four times. Uh, Falls Church Distillers and Belmont Farm Distillery, which is a very cool place, by the way. I mean, all of them are, but Belmont Farm is very much a very traditional farm distillery. Um, I think that Catoctin Creek has to be my favorite tour that I've done, though, because one of the tours that I went on was guided by um, Becky Harris because she happened to be at the distillery and available to do a tour, and that was extremely cool. But yeah,
I think every tour of an actual distillery room, like as opposed to just like the tasting room or
mhm.
whatever, has been a tour that I've set up by asking as a media writer, influencer, whatever. I don't call myself any of these
Mhm.
things, but I go like, "Hey, I'm a person that writes reviews about whiskey and I'm writing about American single malt. Can I tour your distillery?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." And then when I get there, they're like, there's a blogger here or there's an influencer here." And I'm like, I didn't call myself any of these things, but sure, why not?
I
I think
I
all of those tours, I think it's been 5 distilleries. Um, Balcones, um, Clear Creek for McCarthy's single malt, and
oh, how
everything
did you
else that they
swing
have
that
there.
one?
Oh, I just knew a guy.
Yeah. I oh man, I got someone tried to call me out at work about something similar. Sorry, I got distracted.
No,
I'll
it's
come
fine.
back to that because it's a funny story.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll keep listing my stuff then.
Okay.
Balcones, Clear Creek. Oh yeah, Big Gin totally counts. Again, because I knew a
Yes.
guy. I knew a guy who knew a guy, and now I know the guy.
Yeah.
Um, shout out to Joe and Alex. um, what else? Uh, Obviously Westland and Copperworks, because when you're in Seattle
Yes.
area, you can't not go to there at some point. Although it took me an embarrassingly long time to finally make it to Copperworks because it's like it's near Pike Place Market, but it's not like there.
Yeah.
So you're not going to stumble upon it unless you mean to go there, pretty much. Um,
Hmm.
and who else? Heritage Distilling doesn't count because that was just their tasting room, and Westward in Portland. And if I have time,
So
I'm going to Portland in 9 days. If I have
yeah.
time, and the way that trip is working out, I think I'm carpooling and sharing a hotel with someone who's not in spirits at all. So I probably won't end up visiting anyone.
Oh,
But if I have time, I wanted to go to Bull Run because I do have a
it,
bottle of their whiskey and I haven't ever been there.
it's really funny to me that every time someone says, "Oh yeah, Bull Run Distillery," and I'm like,
In
Bull
Kentucky?
Run? No, no, in Virginia,
Oh, Blue Run is in Virginia, right?
Bull Run, B
Oh,
U
oh,
L L
oh, there
R
is
U
a
N.
Bull Run for distillery in Virginia?
There is not, but there
Oh,
is a Bull Run, Virginia,
oh,
that is famous for the Battle of Bull Run,
right.
and also sometimes called Manassas. Um, but if we're talking about virtual tours, I've been on virtual tours of 2 distilleries, Clear Creek and Del Black.
Does Joe's new distillery count because he gave us that 1 minute virtual tour?
Yes, yes, I think it does. So I've been on virtual tours of 3. Cool. My list is increasing in size.
I love when you get excited about stuff. I want to say that you've never gotten excited like that on stream, maybe once.
I
In the 14 weeks that we've been streaming, the 14 streams that we've done, 14, 15, I don't know. How long have we been doing this?
I
We've
got
been doing this since April, and we've missed
yeah,
3 or 4 weeks.
yes.
Let's just call it May, June, July, August times 4 plus 2. Yeah, 14 weeks. I think this is stream
Yeah.
number 14 or 15.
I I'm usually extremely tired. I am extremely
You got
tired
a
right
rough
now,
job,
but
man.
yeah. I'm doing less physical labor most days, but I'm doing a lot more interacting with people, and that wipes me out in a completely different way. And like it's hard to explain
Yeah.
because everyone's like, "Oh, but you're not moving boxes all day every day anymore." It's like, No, but I have to talk to people."
Yeah, just be an extrovert. Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Yeah. Um So I was having a conversation with one of my coworkers once, and I was like, "Oh yeah, if you like peated whiskey," because he mentioned the Lagavulin Opperman's edition, and was saying how much he enjoyed it, and I was like, "If you like peated whiskey, my friend Joe up in the Pacific Northwest makes this stuff called McCarthy's. It's an Oregon single malt. It's peated. It's aged in Gary Oak. It's really, really cool." And he looked at me and went, "Your friend?" And I said, "My friend. Yeah. Joe said I could call him my friend." And he was like, "What's his name?" It's like, "Joe O'Sullivan, Joseph O'Sullivan." And he goes, "Okay, do you actually know Joseph O'Sullivan?" And it's like, "Yeah,
There's a lot of
I'm,
Joseph O'Sullivans, though. Did you find the right one?
yeah," because he Googled Clear Creek,
Nice. Yeah.
Joseph
Yeah.
O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
And it's
As
like,
a
"Yeah."
matter of
He's like,
fact, we also know Caitlin Bartlemay, and
"Yeah." And I mentioned
it's on
Caitlin
my list.
Bartlemay, and it's
I,
like,
I wanted to visit Clear Creek this fall because I want to go meet Garrett.
"Yes, I I want to go. I want to go up there. I want to meet Caitlin like in person. I want to meet Garrett. Um, I want to replant the idea of, hey, you should totally make stewed apple, like take stewed apples to make a brandy,
Hmm.
but you should stew those apples over a campfire.
You've run that by them in the Discord, and they didn't say no.
No, Joe actually told me to remind him during apple season,
Uh huh.
and
And then he
it,
sort of missed apple season and went to a new distillery. But I
yeah,
I bet Caitlin would take that up for sure.
yeah. Um, I also want to make a trip, like a really big trip. It'll have to wait several years because I'm poor, but I want to buy two Catoctin Creek barrels. I want to just drop one at Clear Creek. I want to drop one at where Joe's currently working.
I don't remember if I mentioned this to you or if I did, if it was on stream or not. I now have a Clear Creek barrel. It
You
is a
do.
it is a it is an experimental like 5 liter or 2 gallon Clear Creek
That is
barrel.
cool.
So like it was a barrel that they were using for experiments and then retired. So like, but not like a full size McCarthy's barrel or whatever. I have
Yeah.
it in the garage. I haven't done anything with it, and it's been like 3 months now. It's probably dried out enough that's going to be a problem if I try to put liquid in it. But I'm still going to try.
I mean, you start with hot water first to get it to
Yeah.
swell
See,
up
I
and
don't want to
seal.
do that because I want to use what was in it before,
Right.
and it's
True.
probably soaked into the staves enough that that would be fine. But I
But
don't want to. I don't
also,
want to lose it. But like
yeah,
also at this point, I wonder how ooky the inside of the barrel is because it's just been sitting there with syrupy, dried out stuff in it.
true.
So
Oh, right.
tough
But
choice.
anyway, and he like he like mentioned too, and this was shortly after we did like the show with Joe, um, and he mentioned it to my boss, who was like, "Oh yeah, he showed me a clip of him talking to Joe on like some podcast or something."
Right. We
And
did that. I forgot we have evidence.
yeah, isn't that cool? I
Oh, did you so you got more people watching our podcast. That's what you're doing. Oh, now I remember
probably,
why I went over to
hopefully.
Discord. I was like I went over there and I was like, what was I over there for? I completely forgot.
That reminds me, I should uh see what the actual Discord notification that I got earlier was. Oh, oh, never mind. I can ignore that. But yeah, I'm a massive nerd about whiskey, and I'm super excited anytime I get to like share that with people. And I'm really excited when I meet someone who is even more nerdy about it than I am. So like talking to Joe is so much fun. Talking to Caitlin is a lot of fun. specifically in that Caitlin knows so much about brandy that, like, I'll be like, "Oh, what about this?" And she has an answer because that's her specialty,
Hmm.
and that is
Her
extremely cool.
knowledge of brandy alone makes me want to be a brandy drinker to more of a degree than I am currently.
I will be honest, I have, if we're not counting like the cheap Applejack that I've got a bottle of somewhere, I've got 3 or 4 bottles of brandy. I've got a bottle of Slivovitz, a bottle of Christian Brothers cheap brandy, and a bottle of Catoctin Creek 1757 brandy.
I have no plans for what
I
to
had
drink tonight anyway, so why don't I just go ahead and pour myself a little Clear Creek pot still. Uh, this is not apple brandy, no. This is grape brandy, I guess. Barrel aged 2 years in
I
French Limousin oak casks.
ooh,
Yeah,
I I need to get more of their brandy. I need to get some of their Douglas fir brandy. I have very little of my little sample of it left, and I need more.
I
Speaking
honestly don't
of
remember what I
brandy,
thought of it. I think at that point in the day when they served me some of that at the distillery, I was kind of too overwhelmed by all the other stuff I'd already had. But that Slivovitz was amazing. That left an impression.
so I've got this much left of the Douglas fir brandy.
Is that a 1 ounce or a 2 ounce sample
This is
bottle?
a 1 ounce. It's a
Yeah,
tiny little bottle, and
that's like
I
that's
cherish
good
it.
for that's good for 4 little tastes, right? Like
Yeah,
not enough or enough for one drink or 4 little tastes, pretty much.
I just need. I also at one point was like,
Mm.
"Hey, you should age some Douglas fir brandy. I want to see what that's like." And then
That
you
didn't even
should.
occur to me because it already has so much color. But that's from the what do
It's
they
from
call it?
the
It's a Geist.
yeah. I'm not 100% sure. To be honest, I'm not as versed in the actual science of distilling. I want to be. I want to go to school for it is what I really want, but I gotta figure out how to get there. Um,
I was chatting with Joe the other day, yesterday maybe. And I was like, "Hey Joe, do you know of any bars, like any whiskey bars, like whiskey specialty bars in?" Actually, this is the tail end of a long story. Actually, I probably should go back to the beginning, but I'll finish what I was saying. Um, I asked him like, "Hey, do you know if there are like any specialty whiskey bars in the town where I live?" Which he happens to know because his wife is from kind of near here.
mm,
Um, there's one reason why we're friends because like he keeps coming around basically, even though he works in Oregon, he lives on the Washington. Or before he moved, he lived on the
yeah,
Washington side of the border and commuted up to this area frequently. Um, so I asked him like, "Hey, do you know if there's any specialty whiskey bars in this area?" Um, and he was like, "No, but that area really needs some." And I was like, "You're really making me want to like stick my neck out and open a business." Except that like I don't know. Currently, I'm trying to hustle on this whole whiskey media thing and like absolutely failing to achieve critical mass on the output. Like we're making content or we're making raw content. We're not making a
yeah.
lot of edited content, and we need to at least do that. And I'm like, I've got my whole day job that I don't want to give up because it's good money. And
I've got my day job that I can't give up. It is better money now, though.
yeah, that always helps. It's really hard to give up a job right after you get promoted.
Yeah,
That was my mistake at
I'm.
my last job. I got promoted, and like when you get promoted, you're happy and you're like, hey, they appreciate me. I'll stay. But I also had like a misgiving about the direction that things were going and that I would eventually want to be somewhere else. And I said, oh, I'll wait a year and see how it goes. And by then, you're sort of like, oh, but if I hang on just a little bit longer, I'm going to get promoted again. And when that ends
Yeah,
up not being true, then you end up feeling dumb. Because the
yeah,
best time
yeah,
to change to a different project or a different company is like right after you have the new title and the new paycheck to
yeah.
back up what you want to be doing. Yeah. But yeah, so
Yeah.
so I kind of like it's like it's just a thing that keeps coming up. I've got 250 bottles of spirits between 200-ish bottles of whiskey and 50-ish bottles of everything else. My collection parallels and exceeds that of most specialty bars.
So it's funny you mention that because I've had this conversation with people before where they're like, "Oh, you should try out this bar. They've got a really great whiskey selection." And I go in, not only do I have a higher volume, but I have a deeper selection in terms of variety. And it's like, oh, these people call themselves a whiskey bar with 12 bottles of whiskey?
Yeah, oh, they got Tullamore Dew though.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, hey, they've got a bottle of Redbreast 12. That's cool. I don't actually have that, except that's no longer. Where is it? Oh, it's way over there. Never mind. I was going to say, but that's no longer true. Exhibit
Yeah.
A, but
Rest in
is
peace, my
the rest
bottle
of
of
them.
Redbreast, which I believe I still actually have, waiting to be filled with wine, homebrew.
But it is kind of hard being a whiskey nerd sometimes because, like, and it sounds kind of weird to say, but like, I have the best whiskey bar in the area right here. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, the next best bar that I know of that I've been to that I didn't like not feel comfortable in is an Irish bar that's got more Irish whiskey than me, but they've got a less than half page whiskey list.
Hmm.
Like, I I can see the whiskey list in my head because I've been there for lunch recently. I
Yeah.
didn't get any whiskey because on lunch I had to go back to work.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But like, oh cool, they've got Powers, Gold Label. They've got Tullamore Dew. Ooh, they even have the Tullamore Dew rum cask and the Tullamore Dew 12. They've got a couple of different Jamesons. They've got Green Spot, which is actually I believe the first time I tried Green Spot was at this Irish pub
If there's
because,
one random bottle that I actually have near at hand, I do have that. It's right behind you, yeah. Yeah, you've
uh,
effectively just listed every Irish whiskey I even know. So like,
yeah,
yeah, Irish whiskey isn't really my jam. That's fine. But like, okay, let's take
yeah,
a step back. Say you want to open a whiskey bar. And like, disclaimer, I'm not a business type, I'm an engineer. Right? And I'm an engineer who likes whiskey. So like I'm the sort of person who obsesses about the things that I like, but I am
mhm,
not a distiller, I'm not a bar owner, I'm not a restaurateur. Um my wife's family has some history of restaurateuring, but running restaurants, whatever.
yeah, something
As
like
far
that.
as I know, no alcohol sales though. This is also touching on the long story of like, hey, where did I go on vacation? Let's get back to that.
Yeah, yeah, sorry.
It has come up multiple times. What if we turned all of this that like once I try it, I'm basically not drinking it. I'm trying to give it away, right? Like what if we turned
Hmm.
all of that into a bar, got a liquor license, and actually I mean, it may not be legal to like the stuff that I bought on my personal dime to turn that over into liquor sales, but like
Hmm.
this thing that I do where I buy a bottle, try it, review it, and then put it on a shelf, if we did that in the context of a bar, I could be selling my leftovers. I mean, it's not even
Yeah,
leftovers at that point,
absolutely.
right? It's research for the bar, which is basically what I'm like the structure of what I'm doing is not different from that,
Yeah,
other than the
and
fact
it
that I
would
can't sell
also.
it.
Right. And the other thing that that would do is, if you are regularly posting reviews and building a reputation, which you already have a reputation, at least among producers, you would also effectively be advertising this bar that you run.
Hmm.
And you would definitely be attracting the right clientele by writing those reviews. And like,
Threading the line of like not making that a shilly kind of thing though.
yeah,
I mean, there's always like be authentic, right? Like I
yeah,
write reviews for free because it's fun. I want people like I don't care whether I personally get attention. I want people to benefit from the service of my reviews, right? I want people to
Mhm.
read them because I hope they're helpful. That's kind of my take. I guess, yeah, uh, for the sake of the audience and anybody else, and just to remind my co-hosts, even next Wednesday, I'm going to be on Embellish Pod, assuming that we keep our scheduled
Right.
interview appointment, and I'm going to be talking as an enthusiast expert. Expert. I I need to figure out a better word because like it doesn't feel right to call myself an expert. And it also sets up the
I mean,
wrong expectation, right? I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of every American single malt distillery that exists. I have a good sound base of general knowledge on the topic. Help me figure out a better word than expert because expert is pretentious in a way I don't like. But anyway, I'm going to be coming on as an enthusiast and let's say a well-learned person on the topic of American single malt whiskey. And I feel like where I'm coming from on that is like I was thinking about this earlier today. I'm genuinely not trying to be an expert. I don't care if people think I'm smart. What I want to do is share this style with the world. I want to share it with the people who like what I do in terms
a
of,
spokesperson.
I guess so, for free though.
I
Um
mean, yeah.
I mean, like I've thrown my hat in to be a brand rep for um just as a general concept, but I did inquire with Clear Creek, do you have a place for me? They kind of said they would get back to me. They run a
Mhm.
pretty lean operation, so it doesn't surprise me that nothing is opened up.
Yeah.
And then I would still have to be willing to actually make that leap and do whatever the hours required and decide whether I'm going to quit my day job and all that, right? Like we're talking about a pretty significant
Yeah.
career shift if I were
Oh
to
yeah.
go into if I could do something part time, if I could be like, hey, like I'll run an event for you once a month. Like that's the level of commitment that I'm looking for.
Yeah. I mean, and then you've got like the whole like okay, you so brand ambassador or spokesperson isn't really what I was thinking. I'm
Yeah, I know. You
envoy
just threw out a word
or
and I went with it farther than you meant.
special envoy to single malts or from single
Yeah,
malts.
assistant to the second assistant grip.
Yeah.
Listen, I am at best, and I've said this before, I am at best an attaché to the industry, right? I have some connections, not that many, to be honest. And I have a small audience of people who actually kind of care what I have to say. Um, the pawn unfortunately couldn't join us tonight, but he's probably one of my
Mhm.
best customers. I don't think anybody else has ever bought anything as a result of my personal recommendation directly, other than they've heard it from so many different places. But he buys pretty much anything I say, hey, you should go buy this. I almost feel bad. Like I
I
almost like I should back off on how many things I say, hey, you should go buy this because he buys everything.
I have purchased something off of your recommendation. I'm trying to remember
Hey.
what it is, but I have a distinct memory of it. And I'm
Oh, I want to
looking
know what it is
around
now. But take your
I'm
time.
looking around at what I've got and trying to think of what it was. I suspect that it was an
I
American single malt.
remember. It was the peated Sauterne finished Balcones single malt.
That's what it was. Yeah. Which I can't see from my position. It is above me.
You got the one with the box, right? It came in the box for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a very nice presentation. And they posted
I
that
like
picture and
that.
you're like, I need. And I'm like, it's good. And you're like, it's sold.
Oh man.
That was
I
fun.
I have done so much like recommending things to people. And my
I
boss
feel like I should
or
go pull out the box because like we're just like basically dead air in terms of props today.
oh yeah. Um I have gotten enough of a reputation at work for being a whiskey connoisseur. That when some of my coworkers need recommendations, they ask me, which is an awkward place
Here's
to
the
be
box.
in,
Go get the bottle.
because I'm I again I like you, I don't consider myself an expert. I consider myself to be a layperson, but I know what I like.
With 150 bottles behind you. Just saying, right? There's a tier of layperson and then there's you.
Yeah, okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so this
I'm
bottle
at
right here, which like the best news I think I ever got was this is not going to be a one-off release. They've made this a subsequent year or two.
yes. I have the first batch.
Me too. Yep. Real good stuff.
Um, I go easy on it because
As
that
you can see.
blows out my palate.
Oh
That
yeah,
is
yeah. Maybe I should
like
second guess this decision right now to pour this. Why don't I save it till later? You're totally right. Let's do the doers before we get into crazy stuff.
yes.
Um so yeah, like
You've got
I'm done with whatever I had poured.
what is which Dewars did you say you had?
The three I have. I have the Dewar's White Label, which I have not tasted since 2014 or something.
Ah,
I have the Illegal Smooth. I also have the illegal mezcal. I think it's so this was in barrels that aged it, but the one I have is an unaged mezcal. So shrug. But yeah. So I have the Illegal Smooth and I have the Mizunara.
I have had very little of the Mizunara. So
Same
would you
here.
be willing to do a small pour of the regular white label versus the Mizunara?
Oh yeah, you just want to keep it like a side by side or like a
Yeah,
just a two pours. Okay.
just just because.
Hold that thought. I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Okay. While you are doing that, I am going to fill the dead air by talking about why I think that this series is a great thing to pick up, even if you don't know a whole lot or don't think you want to try a whole lot of blended whiskey, because this is sort of a like everywhere. I'm trying to think of the word ubiquitous. I think sort of one of the most widely available blended scotches. It is inexpensive. It is approachable. It's everywhere, and this is a way for you to take this known quantity that you can get anywhere and try it when they've done something with it, like finish it in Mizunara oak, which gives you sort of a like find the difference game sort of thing that you can do with your tasting. So you can take see the regular doers and you can go, okay, this is what this tastes like. This is what it tastes like finished in mezcal. This is what a port finish does to it. This is what a rum finish does to it. And that can give you a way to get a really broad look at what sort of influences you get from a finishing cask and can give you sort of a rough idea of what you can expect to have in addition to the base profile of a spirit aged in that or finished in that oak. Um, and I think I may have explained that relatively well.
Yeah, it sounded good to me. I have a question for you.
Yes,
So Dewar's White Label has no age statement. Do you have
that is correct.
aside from the minimum of 3 years to call it Scotch? Do you know if they have a typical age?
So they do explicitly say double aged for extra smoothness on the 8-year-old,
Right.
which
I think the
implies
second aging is the finishing cask though.
yes, exactly. So my guess is 4 years is their general uh, age, even though they don't state it anywhere. Double implies twice. I mean,
Oh, I see where you're coming from. I'm not sure that's at all what they meant to imply or even mean by the labeling. I
yeah.
think it's just that they put it in a second cask, so they say double aged.
Although I will say, Doors blended Scotch whiskey white label, true Scotch, double aged for extra smoothness on the white label. So
Oh,
that
interesting.
means nothing.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so that throws out that
There's a
idea.
lot less on this tiny label than there is on yours.
Oh yeah.
They had to put the government
Dewar's.
warning, which took up the entire back label.
I
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, I do love this. Dewar's number varies. This number ensures traceability against forgery or imitation, and it's got in a little balloon in bright red letters number RB-0158 so that you can track which batch your good and or bad bottle of Dewar's came from,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Now the preventing of forgery, I don't know. How are you really gonna know? I think so. I have no it there. I know of it. Let me phrase this better. I know of examples of cases where somebody will say, like a reviewer of some renown will say, "This whiskey's terrible," and the producer will be like, "You have a good reputation for having a good palate. You saying this is bad, and us absolutely believing that it's not. Maybe there's something wrong with your batch. Maybe there's something wrong with your bottle. Send us that bottle so we can find out if there's something wrong with it and recall any other instances that haven't been sold." And they've done this.
I
I don't know the specific. I couldn't list a distillery, but like I know this happens.
I I can give you an example right now. I don't know how much detail I can go into, but it was the guys from the Whiskey Tribe, Rex and Daniel. It was Daniel said, I'm getting a very strong off metallic note on this. I don't know. I want to say the brand because I know exactly which whiskey it is because I have a bottle of it, and I also got that metallic note. But
Interesting.
my bottle wasn't from the same batch.
Huh, interesting. I'll say this. Because that brand wanted to do the right thing with that information, I think it's fine to
Mhm.
name them. I know what you're talking about. I watched that Whiskey Tribe video. It was this one?
It was this one,
Huh.
the rum cask,
Okay.
which is is just one of those funny coincidences.
That we're talking
And I
about
have
these
since,
topics in adjacency.
yeah. Um, but interestingly, I do get a similar, not quite the same, slight metallic note on other rum finished whiskeys.
I think there's
Let
something
me see
about
if I.
rum that there is something that sometimes comes across metallic from rum. That reminds me, if we had time and we just wanted to like just do whatever for a while, I got some rum samples the other day that I've been kind
Ooh,
of itching to open up.
I've got some rum lined up for purchase. I don't have as much. Oh, I don't have as much rum as you probably. I've only got a handful of bottles.
Yeah, somehow what's funny is I got back into single malt because of a mezcal. And to date I've only purchased 4 mezcals, I think.
Oh,
And uh basically I think the trend that's happening here is that whiskey has gotten really expensive and people are kind of burnt out on like the next expensive
yeah.
thing that's kind of ordinary if you're not really into the nuances of whiskey like we are. Single malt drinkers are tending to move to rum. There's been a lot said about this topic and I'm far from well researched on it. But I will say that it does resonate with me. There was a time where I was very let's say not convinced by rum as being a spirit that I wanted to get into. But I also had to look at the fact that my basis for that preconception was essentially the Dewar's white label of rum, Bacardi
Yeah.
Silver, right?
Yeah.
Like I had a completely ordinary, fine but boring rum. Although I that was not the opinion I had of Dewar's white label. I had a very negative opinion of Dewar's white label last time I tried it. But we'll get to that.
Mhm.
Actually, that's the reason I have this sample is I did a Secret Santa, and one of my friends who knew that I had that negative opinion of white label was like, "I'm just gonna get you a sample of white label to troll you."
That's fair. That's fair.
And I haven't
Um,
opened it up until today, so we'll find out.
a friend of mine offered me a bottle of Aristocrat uh, American whiskey. I believe it was a light whiskey.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
well, light whiskey at least is an interesting category for
yeah.
by
Oh,
nature by
absolutely.
nature of being not that common, right? It's interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Sorry, I got distracted and lost where we were.
me too.
Um, oh, we were talking about sort of why whiskey drinkers are moving to rum.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
I don't think it's rum exclusively. I think that a lot of whiskey drinkers are also looking at mezcals and tequilas
And
because
brandy.
and brandy because there is that depth and complexity there. I mean, there's depth and complexity in almost all spirits.
Hmm.
I think vodka is the one exception, and I have been told that I'm wrong about that. But I have to say, a spirit that is, by its nature, intended to have as little character as it can, probably doesn't have as much character as the spirits that are meant to have their own character and to stand out from the others in the category,
Yeah.
such as rum, uh, brandy,
Yeah.
tequila, mezcal.
Yeah, brown spirits
So,
and spirits that are sometimes brown but sometimes clear, right? Like the nice thing about rum and tequila is that they have an unaged variety which is designed to taste good without
mhm,
barrel aging. And that's a thing which in and of itself is really interesting to whiskey drinkers. Like if you've been tasting whiskey for long enough, you've had some new make. When you've had some new make, you're like, "Oh, that has like a lot of rough edges and like I wonder if they could make this better." And then you discover a spirit that has a ton of flavor with no barrel and you go, "Oh, that's interesting." And then you take that same spirit and you put it in a barrel and you get some of that stuff that you're used to liking and you've got all that goodness from the new make and you put them together. Like this is I think aged rum is the perfect marriage of
mhm,
traditionally there is an unaged category and it's aged in a very similar way as whiskey is, and so it's familiar at the same time as being quite different, but not so different to be off-putting. In a lot of cases, I'll say the first time I'm weird, right? Like Ardbeg got me obsessed with single malt because it was hard,
yeah.
like hard to appreciate, hard to enjoy for the first time that you taste it. And the first time I had a rum that made me want to pay attention to rum was a Hamilton Estates St. Lucia pot still, like just nasty industrial funk and like
Mhm.
brackish water and rotten plums. And I was like, I hate that. You know that scene from I think it's First Contact, the Star Trek
Yeah.
where Data gets the
Yeah.
emotion chips and he goes into 10 forward. I'm gonna go super nerdy right now, y'all. Um,
Yeah.
so Data goes in and he orders a drink because he can taste and experience the pleasure of eating and drinking now. He goes in there and he orders a drink, drinks it, and makes a face. He goes, "Yeah, that's disgusting." And then Guinan goes, "Another?" And he's like, "Yes, please." Right. That was essentially my reaction to this rum. Is like, and also the Ardbeg, right? Like I took a sip, I was like, and I walked away from it. And like 5 minutes later, I was like, oh, there's something to that. And I go back and I'm like, oh, like I can learn to appreciate the funk. There's a lot of complexity here that I enjoy. I
So,
think whiskey and like whiskey drinkers moving to rum. I think that's basically the reason why. Like, there's a lot of the same kind of good and weird that we fell in love with whiskey for, and it's not as expensive yet, but it's going that way because a lot of people
yeah.
have started to notice it. God forbid there
So,
are taters in the rum world. I really hope not.
uh, just wait until the less nerdy about the spirit and more nerdy about commodities brokering discover it.
Oh yes, rum cask investments. Oh boy.
Oh, have you seen Blair Bowman's uh, interesting interactions with cask investment people?
This sounds like I am a big fan of Blair Bowman. I don't want to send any traffic to Twitter, but like y'all look up Blair Bowman on Twitter. He's a Scottish gentleman who is real deep in the industry. He's a whiskey writer. And his
He
recent crusade was about their completely broken bottle return recycling scheme.
Yes, and he made some excellent points that are like really So extremely important in terms of like, hey, these are things to consider about the people behind the industry that you are targeting. That I don't think anybody had considered on a legislative level, which sounds really awful because it kind of is, but also is like one of those, if you aren't like looking at it from like the boots on the ground level, it's easy to overlook the fact that, oh yeah, this raises the price by X amount, and it requires a buy-in of this amount from the distillers. Where's that money going to come from? Because the profit margins can be pretty thin, especially for younger distilleries.
Yep. I'm going to take this break
Um,
and say, hello, David. Welcome to the stream.
oh hey, um,
Yeah. So,
oh,
full disclosure, I and a group of friends, a total of 13 of us, bought a cask of Ardent American.
ooh,
Our choice of peated spirit, which will be filled into, if I'm not mistaken, an Oloroso cask. I don't remember what size. Um, with an expected yield of 20 something bottles per person who's invested in this thing. This is not a cask invest. I just want to say, right? We're
yeah,
doing the thing where we're buying a cask. And the reason why is because it's a fun thing to do.
yeah,
We are
and
not in any way intending to sell this cask or the liquid that comes out of it. We bought this for us. And we are fully aware of the possibility that, like the Springbank cask that leaked and the guy didn't get anything, he got like his initial deposit returned or something.
yeah,
The guy who didn't get anything out of his Springbank cask, unlike that guy who felt he was entitled to the full liquid contents of a barrel that leaked, right? Leaks happen. We are fully aware of the risks that we may not get the yield that we're expecting from this barrel in
yeah,
5, 7,
absolutely,
10 years, right? We're buying this with the full knowledge that our $700 a person is going to be gone. Or we'll have 20-ish bottles of whiskey, which is a lot of the same whiskey, to be quite honest. But like,
yeah,
hey, like, we're not going to do this all the time. We're
no,
not trying to turn this into a way to make money. That's the distinction here, right? Like, there are perfectly legitimate reasons to buy casks. We did this partly because we want to understand how this works.
um, one example that I have that's a really good example of cask buying, for purpose, not for like money making, is I am aware of someone. I've met him. I was going to say I don't think I've met him, but yes, I have met him. Who was a friend of a friend who, for his wedding, um, or no, when he got engaged, knowing that it was going to be a long engagement, he through uh, a legitimate broker bought a barrel of uh, whiskey. Um, I think I think the barrel that he bought was already about 5 years old, and he knew it was going to be a long engagement, and he figured, okay, well, by the time our marriage actually happens, you know, it'll be ready for bottling, and it'll be, everyone who comes to the wedding can get a bottle or two. It'll be excellent. It'll be fun. It'll have, our names on it, and like I'll design a pretty little label and everything. And like prepping for his wedding like 3 or 4 years later, because time happened, and you know, I his wife, or at the time fiance, got sick, and so they put off the wedding, and money got tight, etc., and so forth. Um, but when it was time to like get everything prepped for the wedding, and 3 or 4 months ahead of time contacting the broker and saying that he wanted it bottled, and oh, just bottle it at 50% alcohol by volume, can I send a label? And he was informed that his barrel had a leak, and so it was considerably less volume.
No.
Um, and so he was like, okay, if it's considerably less volume, bottle it at cask strength. Um, it'll be fine. It'll just go to the people who I'm closest to. How much is in it? Approximately 32 cases.
That's less, but that's not like nothing. That's hold on. A case is 6 bottles, right?
Yeah.
What? Come on. That's like that's respectable.
Bottle yield on the barrel was apparently initially expected to be about 40 cases.
Okay, well, I understand why they said considerably less,
I
but
don't know
like
if I've just lost
no, yeah,
the point. I think I have.
you expect a barrel to yield somewhere between 200 and 300
Stand by.
bottles. Sorry, did you lose the audio?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. All right. Hey, that's our first technical difficulties in an hour and change.
Okay. My direct monitoring apparently went out, and so I couldn't hear myself,
Can you hear me
and I
now?
had to reset it.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear
Can
me
you
now?
say something?
Hello? Testing. Can you hear me now?
Uh-oh.
Check whether you've accidentally muted. No, he can't hear me.
There it goes. I think
Hello? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Awesome. What happened?
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry. So he, was expecting, you know, that he'd have, 40 cases and had never really thought about how much this actually was. But then he did the math, oh, that's, and it may be less. It may have been like 20 cases or something, but,
Sure.
it was less than the expected volume of cases.
Well over a
But
hundred
it,
bottles still.
yes.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, we're only going to have like like so many guests at our wedding. What are we going to do with the rest of this whiskey? Because that's a lot of whiskey.
Yeah. Give it away.
And so he was talking to the agent for the brokers, and brokers were like, well, what we can do is we can basically bottle your whole lot and then buy back some of it that will go into like our selection of independently bottled available things on our website, and we can give it a cute name, the something or other batch, something about getting married. And he's like, okay, that sounds excellent. Looked at his guest list, got that many bottles, and they bought the rest back from him, totally legal because they're a broker. That's what they do.
Mhm.
And then they're like, by the way, your barrel is on its way to you because the part of your purchase was the barrel.
Oh,
And I understand that that's
okay.
not normal.
Yeah,
And
normally
so
the distillery or whoever aged it would want to keep the barrel to use it again.
so at some point he was like, what am I going to do with this barrel? I guess we can use it in the ceremony. The barrel arrives. It's got a cracked stave. It's, a little bit ugly. It's delivered in the back of a, freight truck, palletized, and he's got, drops off at the end of his driveway and calls them from there and goes, "Hey, your pallet is here." And it reeks. So he goes down, and this barrel has been sitting in the back of a freight truck from like somewhere in Kentucky to where he is currently, which I think at that point was somewhere in New York, in the summer, wrapped in like pallet wrap, strapped to a pallet, and it apparently smelled like all of the worst elements of bourbon amplified and with an extra plasticky, eggy note. And then it got moldy in his garage.
Oh no.
And so it was not a prop at
Now, now
their
you're
wedding
now you're
or
making me
anything.
really worry about that barrel I've had in my garage.
To be fair, he lived in a fairly damp area in New York, and he just left it for like 3 or 4 months unattended, didn't look at it, didn't go into his garage because he didn't own a car.
Yeah, garage is
Um,
storage. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
I'm the same way.
and
We do have cars. We just don't park them in the garage. The garage is for lawn equipment and gardening stuff and dry goods storage. Like
and the only reason I know this story is because I did some freelance stuff for his wife back when I was a handyman. Because he was just constantly overseas doing things. And they had, their pair of bottles from the wedding that they never opened that were really pretty. And I asked her about them because they're, pride of place on their mantle. And I got part of the story, which was that he somehow got, a whole barrel of whiskey somewhere. And, oh, those two bottles are all that's left. Oh, and we had to get rid of the barrel because it was disgusting. And the when you get one side of the story, that's sort of the implication that I got was that he had somehow gotten this barrel off of some shady, like, back alley barrel dealer, and
that
bottled it
exists?
himself or something. And
Wow, that's extremely niche.
I mean, it was a really funny story the way she told it. And then when I finally met him,
Some of the best
uh,
stories are told by someone else.
yeah, um, when I finally met him, I was like, "Oh, I have a question about the whiskey barrel." And he's like, "Did she? It's gone. It's been gone for so many years. Why is she still complaining to random people about the barrel? It can't stink up the house anymore." um, but it's possible to go through a regular, reliable broker and get stuff. And like getting the rest of the story, which is that he bought a barrel from a broker that may or may not have had their own bottling plant, may or may not have had their own warehouse. Um, Very old, whiskey at that point, and clearly spent a lot of money on it. Um, but weird things happen to barrels. The Springbank guy, there's someone who bought a barrel of Scotch at auction that they listed the proof erroneously, and when he went and checked it, the proof had dropped so low that it could not be legally considered whiskey.
That's fun. That's always a fun thing. It's like, well, it was whiskey. What about now?
Yeah. Yeah. Now it's a distilled spirit product of Scotland.
And everyone knows what that means.
Yeah.
So nothing wrong with that.
Um
I think there was
and
a
then you've got
somebody bought something at auction that was like 39.1% alcohol and was listed
yeah.
as, distilled spirit product, right? Or whatever,
Mhm.
whiskey specialty, not whiskey, but like cuz like they've got special labels for like new make spirit drink
Mhm.
is something. And you wouldn't call that new make because it was probably like 20 years old or something. But basically something that had dropped. And there's also a whole bunch of things that are like emergency bottled. It's cask strength 40.1%.
Yeah.
You're like,
Oh,
it's exactly 21 years and 2 months and 5 days old because if we left it another day, it wouldn't have been whiskey anymore.
and so there's also stories like the Rex and Daniel at the Whiskey Tribe released a video where they had gotten a barrel within a barrel.
Oh, that's
Basically,
fun.
they ordered a barrel of spirit. Yeah, there's all sorts of fine print and weasel wording on the contract that says that the broker or whoever they bought it from can't be held liable if it leaks or
Oh, was this the
or
thing
it's
where they got a barrel inside of a tote because it was just at that point it was just a wood whiskey soup, right?
I so the implication I it's been quite a while since I've watched it, but the implication was that their broker sold them an already emptied barrel.
Mm.
That they had dumped the barrel for one of their customers and gone, oops, this is supposed to go to this other uh, distillery that does blending. Well, we've gotten the contract that if it leaks or breaks or whatever, it's not our problem. So just stick it in this barrel catch thing that we've got. That was basically like a bigger yellow barrel that
Yeah.
the regular barrel sat in.
It was a
And
plastic barrel with a wood barrel
yeah,
deconstructed or something inside of it plus whiskey.
yeah.
In a
And
bag. If I remember right,
yes,
it was a yellow tote. I'm calling it a tote. It was a yellow
yeah,
plastic barrel with a plastic bag inside that was full of whiskey and wood.
yes. And
It was,
and
at this point,
Rex
we're just
was
describing the whole episode.
yeah, Rex was implying, if not directly stating, that he had proof that the barrel had been dumped before packaging it and shipping it off to them. I am being very careful not to say specifically that that's what happened because I don't want somebody to come after us, but that is the implication of the video. And um that's really interesting and I need to follow up on that because I'm curious as to what that actually was, what actually happened.
Yeah,
Because
it was bizarre because it was like I feel like the more charitable interpretation is they had a barrel that was badly leaking and they caught it soon enough and they kind of went, what if we just put it in a plastic bag
mhm,
and then ship it in a rigid container because you gotta.
yeah,
Like I feel like that could be explained by a series of let's try to save this as much as possible because
mhm,
whoever's getting it is going to find a use for this one way or another, and the contract allows it, right?
mhm,
I think there's a perfectly innocent explanation. As much
yeah,
fun as it is to assume that everybody's trying to screw you over.
yeah. I mean, and I know for a fact that there's a lot of like, oh, well, shoot, it's insured that happens in the freight industry.
Hmm.
Like, we definitely have not at any point received palletized goods that basically the message from the driver definitely wasn't, "Hey, this got dropped, but it's covered and insured," and we definitely didn't have to file a claim, and definitely didn't have to note that we were told specifically that that had happened because if nobody knows exactly what happened in shipping, that was somehow better, et cetera, and so forth. You know, the because it's insured. Don't worry about it. But that only goes so far.
I'm not going to give my take on this because I don't want anyone at your company to get in trouble.
Um, as far as I know, I have not outright stated who I work for.
That
Um,
may or may not be true, probably, but just
I'm
to be
careful about it.
safe.
Yeah, I'm careful about it. But
I
we
know
didn't
that
break any rules.
at some point Ian stopped being safe about it, but like not because it was ever an issue, right? Like
No.
he's been clear about this on multiple streams so far. Ian works for Delbach Distillery in Arizona.
Yes. And of the three of us, it's really funny because and I'm not saying this as like a slight to Ian, but like of the three of us, if somebody had asked me to give long and short of odds on these three people, which one of them do you think is going to work for a distillery in the next year or so? Like a year and a half or 2 years ago, whenever it was that Ian started working for Del Bach. Um, I probably would have guessed you, Doug.
To be honest, around that same time that Ian joined the Whiskey Lodge, I was considering a career change. So you would not have been wrong. Like, you had all the signals that I was thinking
Right.
about that. So uh it just turns out not to have gone that way.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Ian's
mean,
Ian's history is that he has a background in wine, and he joined the Whiskey Lodge, and we all collectively liked him, and he made friends. And one of those friends, who happens to be the friend that we had on to interview on the Whiskey Lodge cast, basically got him a job. Sort of made introductions, right? He
mhm.
Joe would not go so far as to say, and he has explicitly stated, "I didn't get you that job, Ian. Ian got that job." I think he said that while we had him on, right? Uh,
Well, and I think it's
he made
important to state,
introductions though, and having
yeah,
connections
that
does matter.
yeah, like I have multiple times like been like, yeah, it doesn't connections help to an extent, but if you are a bad person, it doesn't matter who vouches for you, you're not going to get what you need or what you want. And Ian is a good person. He's knowledgeable, he communicates effectively.
There's a story about vouching that I should definitely not tell because I would reveal too much about myself.
Yeah, I've
But
vouched
it,
for
it
people who
involved
let me
secure
down.
it involved me being listed as the as the character reference for someone who was getting government clearance.
Ah,
That was a that let just the short version and the version that I can share is that was a strange phone call.
I was listed as a character reference for a friend of mine who actually this has happened a couple times, but who listed someone who is applying for a job with a law enforcement agency, specifically in forensics, listed me as a reference, and I got a phone call from somebody, an admin type, following up on things. Hey, is this person honest? Yes. Are they trustworthy? That it broadly overlaps with honest, but yes. Do they make good financial decisions? And it's like they
I don't
make
know.
extremely frugal financial decisions,
It's probably the right
etc. and
answer.
so forth.
Did
And and like
they ask
zero
you about
follow up.
did I ask you about terrorism?
They did not ask me about terrorism. They did ask me if I was aware of any criminal dealings that may not have been reported. And I may or may not have laughed at them when they asked me that.
That's such a surprising question.
And also unreported criminal activities like y-
Yeah, with all due respect, G-Man, it's not criminal until you're indicted and convicted.
yeah, like
By the way, do you know any criminals? Exactly. Yeah, no, one of the questions I got asked was, to the best of your knowledge, does this person have any contact with terrorist organizations in Iran? I was like, that's extremely specific and absolutely not. I don't know. Like, I would guess. I mean, the question was to the best of my knowledge, and I can answer to the best of my knowledge. Like, this is
I
like, you remember those when Windows started like asking, like, would you
yes.
recommend this operating system to a friend or colleague? And I saw a post on Twitter. Someone was like, "Listen, Windows, Microsoft, I need you to understand. People don't just go around recommending operating systems to each other. It doesn't happen. There's
I bit back
only
real
two or three
hard on making
choices."
I
Yeah.
bit real I bit back real hard on making a joke that would have been clipped out of context of me like asking about uh criminal organizations, etc. because my brain immediately came up with the joke and then I went, I don't want that to be something that my face and voice has said on stream.
Oh, I can't. I don't even want to think about the number of things that we've said on stream that could be taken, that could be clipped out of context.
I I've got a 3-second audio clip.
Also, you can make us say anything you want. We've got enough video of us on the internet now. You could just, even in chronological order, You could jump cut to make us say anything that you want at this point, probably.
Probably.
So
Um,
let's definitely not mention. Nope, I'm not gonna say the things.
and also the other thing that popped into my head was the "How are you doing, fellow kids" meme, except it's just "How are you doing, fellow?" Yeah, I I
Anyway,
I
let's
gotta.
bail ourselves out of this hole. Um,
I don't know if I've got a bucket good
so
enough for that.
so I've got a Glencairn, and I've got two. Um, in fact, while you were talking, because I
Right.
we were supposed to be doing this side by side. So
Yes.
for the sake of the editor, that's me. Phil and I have discovered that we both had Dewar's White Label and Dewar's Japanese Smooth. We also both have Dewar's Illegal Smooth, which is a mezcal finish, but we're not touching that one today. So this is for better or worse. So Dewar's White Label has no age statement, so But let's say philosophically the blend is the same. And this is an 8-year-old Dewar's philosophically white label that was then finished in a Japanese Mizunara oak cask. This is an interesting side by side. Everything in this series is an interesting side by side because you get to see what a basic blended Scotch whiskey is in isolation. Bourbon casks, probably some sherry, who knows. Um,
Yeah.
and then when you give it a specific type of finish that is meant to give a significant amount of flavor to something. And I will say, this one positively surprised me in a really good way. The illegal smooth delighted me. It was surprising, but it was like a mild surprise that was more delight. The Japanese smooth surprised me in kind of an intense way. Mizunara oak, it turns out, if it's not been used before, which is the case with these casks for this first inaugural release of Dewar's Japanese smooth, these were new. This is the wildest thing. I'll go see if I can try to find it. There's an interview with Stephanie McLeod about this release, about these Japanese oak casks. I forget if it was on Whiskey Cast or somebody else. I don't know. Um, but it was a really good interview. It might have been Whiskey Lore the interviews even, but whatever. It was a really good interview where she talked about like how they came to have these. I think it was 8 Japanese Mizunara oak casks, how expensive they were, and like all that makes it even the more amazing that this is a less than $30 bottle on the shelf. The only way that makes any sense is, first of all, they had a commercial goal in keeping these bottlings relatively cheap, but they are absolutely planning on using these Japanese oak barrels for other products later.
And until the end of time.
Yeah, and as long as they possibly can. And hopefully they're really well made casks and they could last for quite a good long time if so. Um so this is almost to say you're probably almost not ever going to get a chance to taste raw brand new Mizunara oak in an otherwise unpowerful spirit. So you really know what this oak tastes like. This release, this Dewar's Japanese Smooth, is an excellent value for its educational potential. So a firm recommend, regardless of my rating of it, which is fairly high, although I haven't written a review. Firm recommend. At less than $30 a bottle, how can you go wrong? At this point though, I don't even know if you're gonna find it, but they probably are gonna do it again if they're not still on the store shelves. Yeah. Um, shall we do some notes here?
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna need a minute with White Label because I haven't tasted this in the better part of 10 years.
So, the white label.
I'm gonna pour a little more actually.
The white label has a very characteristic taste to me. It is the blended scotch, the bunch of blended scotch that I am most familiar with.
Not Teachers
It,
or Famous Grouse?
I mean, I do have teachers, but I don't touch it as often because typically uh, when I'm reaching for an inexpensive blended Scotch, I'm not drinking it neat. I'm making a cocktail with it,
Or
or
Cutty
I'm
Sark?
drinking it on the rocks.
Have you had Cutty Sark?
I have not.
Okay, for some reason I thought you had, which is why I keep bringing this bottle out because I was like, you have this, right?
I don't. I almost bought a bottle of it just because, but I have not. Um, but so Dewar's White Label to me has always had sort of a peppery, slightly like vinegary note on top of like just the lightest, like almost more like a sort of LaCroix style. Someone yelled smoke while it was being distilled, sort of
It's a good
like,
description of the smoke level, yeah.
um, and just a little bit of like a slight meatiness, like a hard salami.
I will say, well, my face is probably not the best indication of this review, but the last time I had Dewar's White Label, it struck me as really aggressive and like harsh smoke that just burns every part of you. To be fair, I didn't really drink spirits back then. So some of that was
Hmm.
probably just drinking 40% alcohol for, you know, you know, the second time in a given year,
Hmm.
whatever. This actually is a much more well-balanced palate than I remember. Like it's actually not, it doesn't have the sort of chemical shiny off notes that I typically attribute to young inexpensive scotch.
Yeah,
It does have that
I
little bit of smoke too.
I will say that I think it's actually one of the better values at the low end of the Scotch spectrum price wise. Um, a lot of people disagree.
I'll say White
But
Walker was worse than this.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Johnny Walker White Walker literally gave me a stomach ache.
It's also White Walker was basically like a, oh, freeze this so you can't taste it,
Even
which,
frozen, when it thawed out in my stomach, it made me sick.
oof.
That was rough.
I will say, strangely, I have been told that I have not given Johnny Walker a fair shake because I have said multiple times that I actually prefer Dewar's White Label to Johnny Walker Black or Chivas Regal 12 to Johnny Walker Black. Um,
You know, that is a side by side worth doing. Dewar's White
yes.
Label, Johnny Walker Black Label, Chivas 12. They're similar levels of smoke,
Hmm.
not necessarily similar ages. You know what? Johnny Walker Black is 12 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
Shiva,
Or is the double black 12 years old?
I'll have to double check, but
Is the double
let's.
black still a product?
I don't know. I have a sample of one though from a sampler pack. But anyway, um, let's find the 12-year-old Johnny Walker blended Scotch. Chivas 12, also 12-year-old blended Scotch. Dewar's
Hmm.
has a 12-year-old blended Scotch. Let's bypass white label
Yes.
and just say we'll have the white label on the side because your assertion is that white label is perhaps better than Johnny Walker Black. Possible. Why
I
not?
mean,
We could check the
more of
red label
a,
too.
yeah. It's sort of one of my, like, I prefer it too, and that is mainly because I find the Johnny Walker Black Label to be barely there flavor wise.
Yeah.
Um,
So I very recently had Johnny Walker Blue Label, and I would say I was not impressed. It wasn't bad.
yeah.
Like
No.
it didn't offend me, but for $250 a bottle, I expect an
I-
awful lot more character than that.
See, and that this is a conversation that I've had a handful of times with people who tell me that I just don't understand the purpose of Blue Label because, Blue Label isn't really for whiskey drinkers.
Exactly. Yeah,
Is
that's
their
totally
assertion.
right. That's my conclusion as well for what it's worth. Like having
But
had it, I understand the spot in the market that occupies, and it does not belong on my shelf.
yeah, I had it once at a restaurant, and I was not entirely convinced that I hadn't been poured something else because I literally could not taste anything. Drank like water, tasted like almost nothing. I get why
I think it was
people buy it.
46% alcohol. So like that makes it one of the higher core offerings.
Yeah, but
Still
it,
low
it
enough
was
that it's not going to burn if you're at all used to drinking spirits. And if you're buying a $250 bottle for any other reason than to impress, and it's still to impress, like
yeah,
you probably, this is not your first time drinking whiskey if you're buying a
no.
$250 bottle.
I
This
will say,
actually is going to be a great segue into what did I do on my vacation.
oh yeah,
So I recently had Johnny Walker Blue as a clue. Um, so I went to China, visited my wife's family. This is probably the most personal detail I've shared. Um, I'm not gonna give specific localities about where. Uh, but somewhere along that trip, we went and visited a the bar that is a bar that is owned by a family member's friend. We went all over China, by the way. It was Shanghai, a couple of small towns, Beijing, went a couple of other places. Ended up routing through Hong Kong and then to Japan and then back home. Long trip, lots, very busy. Um, Somewhere along this trip though, um, my wife's cousin, who she thinks of as a brother, uh, recently, I've been not quiet about it, like learned that I'm a whiskey person and decided that he wanted to go drinking with me. If you know anything about drinking culture in Asia, you can already see where this is
dangerous.
going.
Danger, danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah. So he and I drank quite a lot of Baijiu, including Mao Tai and a few other things. I don't hate it. I kind of don't get why people think that Baijiu is like not a quality spirit. It's fine.
I
It's like
I
it
think
has
that
every bit of
a lot
nuance.
of that is has to do with the fact that it's a primarily Chinese made spirit, to be honest.
Okay, leave aside the fact that it comes from China. Look, Baijiu has a lot in common with whiskey. It's distilled from
Yeah,
grain. It's not aged in oak. It actually probably has a lot more in common with shochu. It is from my reading of the production process, they use something like koji to saccharify the grain, which
hmm
in most countries makes it not compatible with the whiskey definition. But the broad international definition of whiskey, which is used, is fermented grain distilled, aged in oak. And if you take out the aged in oak, you could say you have whiskey new make, right? Baijiu is essentially a form of whiskey new make. But because it is meant to be served without any barrel aging, the new make is extremely flavorful.
hmm
And it's not, I mean, maybe bad Baijiu has like really sharp edges and stuff, but like I've had Baijiu, 5 examples total of various brands of Baijiu, ranging from the Red Star Erguoto that you can buy here. It's a green bottle with a white label and red stars on it, and it's 58% alcohol. And by that virtue alone, or maybe 56. By that virtue alone, it is a tough spirit to drink. You mostly use it for
right.
cooking. The reason we bought it was for cooking purposes, right? But having tasted that neat, it's kind of got like a thick honey kind of thing, and it does this transition into weird medicinal herbs, and like it's a little weird, but it's hardly a completely different category of weird from Jura or Ardbeg.
Right, right.
And it's not smoky that way, but like all the other herbal, honey, funky, dirty sort of stuff that's going on
hmm
with it is like very much on par with certain types of scotch. So, like, we're not totally into like bad, weird territory, I would say, right? And I
Yeah,
think you could probably easily say that's the least good Baijiu that I've had, and that was perfectly fine. Like, I'd give that a 5 out of 10. Fine, right? Like, I enjoyed. I was playing some Tears of the Kingdom, and I was sipping on that. Right? It wasn't enough that I was like, oh, I have to mix this with something and get rid of it. I assumed if I was gonna drink it, I would have to come up with a cocktail mix for it, and like probably I still will, or we'll just use it for cooking because it's like it's not 5 out of 10 is not good enough. I'm gonna reach for it often, so I will not kill that bottle if I'm only drinking it neat. Now on the other hand, right, the first baijiu that I had in China was So Moutai is a brand, right? They have different
Right.
levels of stuff. So it was like not the worst, but far from the best Moutai that there was. Just happened to be like a bottle that uh my cousin-in-law had that he wasn't planning on using for like business entertainment purposes. So he was like, yeah, like let's drink this bottle.
The whole bottle.
Let's drink this bottle. The whole bottle, right? So we go out to dinner and we're doing shots, right? And what I want everyone to understand, what I learned on my trip to Asia, to China, what I learned from my trip to China, the drinking culture in China of doing shots, absolutely true. However, the definition of a shot is like 5 milliliters or less. They have these tiny, tiny cups that you pour. So first of all, you take the bottle of Baijiu and you pour it into a pitcher that's 100 milliliters. Like
Hmm.
basically, up to here in a Glencairn. Maybe higher, right? Like the pitcher is basically
Yeah.
this size. And you take that, it has a little pour spout, and you pour it into this tiny glass, right? And anytime that you gambe your other people that you're drinking with, that you dry your glass, you drink the whole thing, you do a shot. That's like 3 milliliters, 4 or 5 milliliters, right? That's like a bigger sip than I take, but that's a big sip. It's not a
Yeah.
shot the way that. And then on another occasion when we were drinking whiskey, their shot glasses were 15 milliliters, half an ounce, right?
Hmm.
So I was like, listen, I need the reason that Americans are so scared of drinking with Chinese people is because they just do shots. I need you guys to understand what we think you're talking about when you're doing shots. And I poured three, like I was like, hey, this is the friend of, the friend of a family member who owns a bar. Do you have a Glencairn? Yes, you do. It's a whiskey bar, right? Give me a Glencairn. And I
Yeah.
poured three of these shots into a Glencairn, and it's not even up to the ounce and a half mark. And
Yeah.
I said, this is an American shot, right?
Yeah.
when you say when you're doing 20 shots, if that's alcohol poisoning and then some in the United States. When you're doing 20 shots of 4 or 5 milliliters each, you get through a third of a bottle of whiskey, which is still a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of alcohol, don't get me wrong. But it's only a
Still.
third of a bottle of alcohol and high proof. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
still only a third of a bottle of alcohol. You're well within somewhere between pleasantly drunk and a little uncomfortable, but way
Hmm.
before you're in any kind of danger.
So I have a just real quick story about a friend of mine who is from Taiwan. Um, we were hanging out. This was several years ago. Um, and we have a friend who makes lemonade, where instead of water, he
The
uses
scare
vodka.
quotes have me concerned.
Yeah, b- bas- basically, it's like a lemon drop, except it's just vodka. Not not that bad, except if you're like me and for whatever reason, some brands of cheap vodka make you physically ill immediately upon ingesting them. Um,
Like White Walker, which isn't vodka, but
yeah.
still, I get your point.
Um, and he had been talking a big game about, oh, you don't know, my culture is nothing but drinking, etc., and so forth.
All of a
Um,
sudden, I feel like we should do a vodka tasting because the previous conversation and this.
yeah. Um, we should. We should do a whole episode on vodka. We need to find a vodka maker who's willing to come on and talk to us about vodka. Um,
We probably could encourage Caitlin Bartlemay to take that role. Like
yes,
that wouldn't be her preferred topic, but like
we
I've
should
watched
do.
her do a presentation on the majority about Timberline vodka, which is a great vodka, by the way. I
All
don't I
right,
don't usually have opinions about vodka, but like if you haven't tried Timberline, it's worth a try.
here's what we do. Caitlin, if you watch this clip later, I'm sure someone will clip it. Don't worry about it. Just pretend I didn't say this. We
David,
hold
do
the
the clip.
brandy episode ransom.
Uh-huh.
We don't do the brandy episode with her until we've done the vodka episode with her.
I think she'd appreciate that level of shenanigans. That's the right way to
No.
sell it.
So, but anyway, so we're hanging out. We're nerds. We're playing D&D and drinking probably an unhealthy amount, but we're all like 22, 23 years old. We can still recover from it.
You're allowed to make
I'm not
unhealthy
drinking.
decisions.
I'm not drinking the lemonade because I physically can't. It will make me ill.
Hmm.
I'm drinking a from a bottle of whiskey that I brought.
Safe.
Um, and at some point, he's had two or three have hefty portions of the lemonade, and he goes, "How come you aren't drinking?" And I go, "I'm drinking." He goes, "No, you're not. That's nothing. This is excellent. This is 40% alcohol. I've had 3 cups of it. I'm fine. You should try some." I was like, my physiology doesn't get along with vodka. Whiskey is a different story. I'll pour you some whiskey if you'd like. Um, he went from a little bit buzzed to he had to go sit down for a little while
Hmm.
because I poured him an ounce and a half of cask strength bourbon
Yeah.
and he shot it.
Oh, that's cruel if you're not expecting it.
Yeah, I am not proud of that. I
But
drank a fair amount.
also well deserved. Get off my back, bro.
Yeah, and it is worth noting that his sister had warned him. Oh hey,
This whiskey shit is. Mm.
well, her exact wording was, "Philip doesn't look like he's drinking, but he is."
Uh-huh.
Which was basically I'm sitting here with a rocks glass with whiskey in it, sipping it, playing games, and why is
Oh
it?
my god, Nightbot is like destroying David today.
Why? Why are you doing this? A tube Nightbot.
Maybe I need to ban Nightbot.
Oh no.
David, go ahead and send it to me on Discord and I'll post whatever it is.
Um. Oh, where was right? So, and it was sort of an enlightening experience for everybody involved because like the culture that they are from was the sort of drinking is an expected part of doing business, visiting family, and it's sort of a everybody drinks the same stuff, and you know there's an expectation that
Oh, okay.
you will.
Why doesn't Nightbot like clips from our own stream?
I don't know.
All right, well, here, we have a clip. Thank you, David. I wonder if I can just like
um
add that to my own channel's clips. Maybe? I'll check it out later. I don't know how Twitch works. I'm still new to the
um
internet. I've only been doing this for 4 months.
but there's sort of an understanding that everybody is sort of kind of making the same journey to the end destination of getting to know each other better through alcohol. And if you're doing something different, if you're not drinking, you're making yourself an outsider. And that was sort of an interesting thing because like drinking culture in the US is weird to everybody who isn't an American. Like having spoken to Europeans about drinking, like we talked to Paolo about it one time where he was like, "Yeah, we all like have a beer with lunch. We, you know, after work we all, have a pint together and then walk home." And it's like that's cool. I would not drink with most of my coworkers.
I had a group of coworkers that I did exactly that with regularly. So, I mean, I guess it just depends on your specific work culture.
True. But the
That
the
be
the
that
approach that
said, I drank a lot more when I was mostly drinking socially with my coworkers than pandemic, and then I got into whiskey, and like I just drink whiskey, but I drink way less quantity of alcohol than I used to,
Yeah.
which was made
I have
abundantly
found.
clear to me when I had to drink a third of a bottle of Maltai, not once, but 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. So like
Oh yeah, so
I think
my advice is, if you don't want to drink what is probably to you, my advice to the viewers, when you go to China, if you don't want to end up drinking what is probably to you an unhealthy quantity or an uncomfortable quantity of alcohol, don't tell anyone you drink spirits. Just not going to
yeah.
end well for you.
Yeah.
Because naturally these things escalate. I'm told that it's kind of a bonding thing. Hopefully this won't end up happening again, but that basically when your family member knows that you can hold your liquor, they're going to push you to your absolute limit.
Yeah.
And I hit my limit and didn't want to eat the next day. So, yep. And a lot of people will tell you I'm kind of a lightweight. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. It's not a good
Yeah.
apparently it's not an acceptable excuse in a country where like drinking is considered like a prerequisite for doing business. So you need to
So
push yourself to be stronger.
um to quote my friend Holden, who's often in the comment section on our streams, but lately has not been due to his work schedule. Um, Being a lightweight is good because lightweights pay less. Because at a bar, being
Ah,
a lightweight means that it takes fewer drinks to get where you're going.
right. You're a cheap date for yourself.
Yes.
I
Um.
I once in college, I don't know, I read an article or something. Apparently, allergy medicine, or like one of the more common allergy medicines, made
Yes.
alcohol hit harder,
Yes.
and also like decreased your tolerance, or like increased your tolerance for the allergy medicine and alcohol both. And to me, this was like, oh, stay away from that combination. You don't want to mix those two drugs. Don't
Yeah.
mix don't mix your allergy medicine and your alcohol. It sounds like a bad time, right? You don't want to end up in that situation where you're more drunk now and you need more alcohol later to enjoy yourself, and also you need to take more allergy. This just sounds bad
Yeah.
all around. I told this
All
to
the way
my
around.
I told this to my neighbor, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do that." Different philosophy.
I will say, I think we've talked about it briefly before about, both of us drink way less now than we did in the past. And both of us like are firmly of the belief that like both of us are glad that that time's behind us. That we've learned and grown from that point. Um it is fascinating to realize that I like personally, I know myself. I know that my tolerance has decreased greatly from when I was a little bit younger and was drinking much more heavily, much more regularly. Um, but
Sorry, I totally
yeah,
distracted you with that comment that I just typed.
yeah,
So
it's okay.
since I've derailed your train of thought anyway, I'm going to be on Embellish Pod next Wednesday.
Oh yeah,
I've been
yeah,
listening to the backlog of episodes there, so that I know what the host style is, and
hmm
he really likes interviewing people about stuff that's like not exactly what they would normally interview about, right?
okay,
Which leads to some interesting conversations. You're having conversations that isn't what everybody else has already covered, right? You're not having the dry media coverage. You're getting to know the people. So he had
yeah,
one guest on where she talked about, I think she used to work for Brown Forman. She switched to an independent, some smaller thing, and she's a drinks rep. And she's started
yeah,
to have lots of thoughts about her health when it comes to being a drinks rep and drinking your own product day in and day out as you're trying to sell your product. And like, how do you stay healthy when drinking is your job,
yeah,
ostensibly? My answer to that would be, it's easy enough to tell the person that you're selling the whiskey to, like, I drink this all the time, but I can't drink it with every customer because that would be unhealthy. Right. I would rather, maybe that doesn't sell as much whiskey, but like that's my authentic point of view. Maybe that makes me a
yeah,
bad drinks rep. Right. but I wouldn't be able to go to Derby and 10 days in a row drink to no end with
Right.
everybody, right? I wouldn't be
Right.
looking for a way to make myself more happy after the fact, more healthy after the fact. My personal take is I'd be looking for any legitimate conversational avenue to decrease my consumption on the day. That's my personal
So
take. But I get that that doesn't necessarily work. And I appreciate that industry people are talking about this. I
it is extremely important that they're talking about it and that it's a discussion. And I will
Yeah.
say that at the events that I've been to, where there have been drinks reps there, pouring drinks, talking about alcohol, I think there were two people that were brand reps at the last show that I was at who were drinking the product. The rest of them were totally dry.
I think yeah, my
I think that's the right
experience
way to go about it.
my experience of events like that is the same. Everybody who's pouring drinks is not drinking. And I think that events should almost encourage that. I've also been to an event where like somebody who was unofficially a brand rep, like not actually an employee of the company, but somebody who works
Hmm.
as like kind of a brand rep contractor, like they run it, they do basically what I would like to do, right? As a
Yeah,
contractor, work to run events, right? And this person's around in circles, and I'm not going to name names, right? And like
right.
tons of fun. She loves to pour drinks for people, but she also will drink along with you, which is not what everybody else who was running a booth was doing, right?
Right.
There was a definite party atmosphere in that room. No question about it at all. It was a very different mood between the people who are there to officially represent the product and the people who are there to enjoy the product with the audience, right? It's just a different mood.
Yeah.
I would I would find it so putting myself in the mindset of a person at one of these events walking up to a booth and saying, I'd like to have some of, I'd like to try this Jack Daniel's triple mash just to think for some that was a very nice booth.
Yeah.
So that stands out in my
Yeah.
mind. I didn't really care for the whiskey personally, but like the booth was very nice, right? So I walked
Oh,
up, I'm like, I want to try the Jack Daniel's triple mash, right? And they pour some for me. And I'm like, can you tell me something about this? And like, we talked for a little bit. It didn't once cross my mind. But I wanted to drink the whiskey and know about the whiskey. It didn't once cross my mind to say to the person who poured the drink for me, "Hey, why aren't you drinking this with me?"
yeah.
I think it would be weird to ask that. I think it would be
Yeah.
uncomfortable, borderline inappropriate to push on somebody who's giving me free drinks to drink with me. But I
Yeah.
don't think, and that's Washington State. That's the culture
Mhm.
here in Washington State is you don't push people to drink. But that's not the culture everywhere.
Right.
And it may totally be uncomfortable for a drinks rep to not be drinking with the people who are drinking their product, even if they just have a glass off to the side that's smaller or has less volume in it and they take a sip here and there and they're not shooting it back like the audience, the festival goers or whatever are, right? But they've got it there and they pour a drink and they cheers the glass and they take a sip with the customer, right? I could see that being if you control your intake to a certain degree, you could
Yeah.
absolutely do that in a healthy way too. But it's just a different culture between it would be inappropriate to be drinking with your guests and it's expected to drink with your guests.
Yeah. Yeah. So I lost my train of thought there, but one of the things that I was uh getting towards was that it's wild to think about how much I used to drink and think about like if I tried to do that today, I would get sick immediately. And then like turn around and realize that for most of my coworkers, me saying, "Oh yeah, I had a few ounces of whiskey last night," is a wild thing because for them, a few ounces of whiskey sounds like a hangover, guaranteed hangover. And for me, it's just it's like it's not that much to me, and
Yeah.
that's sort of a weird thought to have.
Hopefully my internet doesn't drop. I'm having some like I'm not sure if it's just I have a light bulb burning out or if we're actually having some kind of power flickers from the wind or whatever, but like my lights
Oh
keep
boy.
blinking. So as far as I can tell, we're still online. So I guess my lights are less resilient to power spikes than my computer equipment. One would hope.
I mean, if you've got everything on a battery backup,
I don't, but
um,
I have it on a
oh
surge protector. I
yeah.
should put it on a battery backup because I'm the sort of person who knows that that's a good idea. But you know,
I mean,
it
priorities.
requires doing some work to reconfigure how things are plugged in. I actually, even stupider, I already bought one and I didn't have it. I haven't hooked it up yet.
So I have a funny story about battery backups, fiber optics, and companies taking equipment that isn't marked as theirs, and sometimes equipment that is explicitly marked as not theirs.
I'm debating whether I should say we should save this for another time.
Maybe. Oh, it's quick though.
Okay, go
It,
ahead.
so, um, my grandparents got fiber optics installed, which came with like a battery backup unit that lasts an hour. Your power goes out, it beeps every, like, I want to say 45 seconds or something, and you can turn it off and then turn it on again when you need to make a phone call or whatever. The problem is if you are asleep when it happens, or you can't hear it, or you don't think about it, that's not a lot of time actually.
I'm
Um,
listening. I'll be right.
yep. And out of concern, my dad installed a much sturdier, longer lasting battery backup system. It was obviously not uh, the provider equipment, which was also present. It was marked as not being provider equipment, but at some point when there was a system change or something, there was a provider representative there doing maintenance who saw a non-standard battery backup installed, reinstalled a standard battery backup, and took the other one. And that's unfortunate. It was kind of weird though, like because you don't expect that sort of thing. And I think we've rambled enough. But we should, before we go, if we've got like a minute or two,
Yeah, we
we
got some time.
should come back to the Dewar's Japanese smooth Mizunara
That is
finish.
exactly what I was gonna say when I was gonna ask you to delay that story. But I'll just add on. I had a plumber who did the same thing. Plumber showed up, forgot his whatever wrench attachment. I happened to have one. I lent it to him. It was gone. Right?
Yeah,
Not really his fault, right? Why
no,
would he think to return the thing that he usually always has? But
yeah,
I'm still kind of annoyed because that was a useful whatever it was. I forget. Whenever I need it, I'm like, damn it, that plumber
oh yeah.
took my wrench thing, whatever it was. I'm not a
Do
very
you
handy
wanna?
person, but yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is surprisingly powerful on the nose. Well, okay, so let's think about this from an editor's perspective. It's been a long minute since we talked about the
Mhm.
Dewar's white label. Let's just revisit this real quick so we have and also David might have joined in after we did our comments. Um,
So,
so Dewar's,
shall I do a cliff
yeah,
note
yeah,
to the
do it
tasting of the?
absolutely. Do a quick wrap up of white label.
So white label is a fairly distinct, peppery, a little bit vinegary, blend with like sort of a LaCroix level of smoke, as if someone yelled smoke while it was being blended. Um, it is not entirely bad. It's fairly well balanced, maybe a little bit prickly around the edges, but pretty much when you think of a blended scotch, that's what you think of.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that and say that I've had other blended scotches which frankly aren't that good. Like a little bit more
Mhm.
prickly, a little bit perhaps less interesting. This doesn't like stand out in any particularly great like there's nothing that juts out, which is a compliment.
Right.
Um like it's if anything, it may be lacking a little bit in like baking spices, which like you get from a lot of like more budget
Hmm.
Scotch. Like it doesn't really have much in the way of cinnamon. It doesn't really have honey. It doesn't really have vanilla, maybe a little bit, but it does have the smoke and it does have a maltiness and
Hmm.
it doesn't have the chemical shiny off notes that you usually get from a blended whiskey. Like it's actually like aside from being like a solidly average whiskey, there's nothing bad about it. It's a solidly average
Yeah,
whiskey.
and
I,
average
I'm
means
pleasantly
better than
surprised.
bad.
I definitely hated it a lot more 10 years ago than I do right now. I don't hate it at all right now, actually, but I
Yeah.
hated it 10 years ago. So it just shows how like more experience and like finding. You know what's interesting? I wonder how much you agree with this. Like as you try more really good things and learn to appreciate certain
Hmm.
aspects of those things that aren't as good, you know how to appreciate better. Like they're harder to
I'd
appreciate,
say that.
but if you know how to appreciate them, they're perfectly like appreciable.
Yeah.
They're perfectly
Yeah.
enjoyable for what they are. It's just that you have to work harder to appreciate them. So now the Dewar's Japanese Smooth. So we're coming from Dewar's White Label to Dewar's Japanese Smooth, and I almost totally annihilated the Glencairn that was in my other hand when I brought this bottle over.
Oops.
They're pretty sturdy, but I still wouldn't want a glass to blow up in my hand. Um,
No.
this is an 8-year-old Dewar's philosophically white label, but then finished in a new Japanese Mizunara oak casks, is my understanding. And right away on the nose, it is much more powerful.
It definitely has a stronger, bolder character. Definitely more of the like cannony notes, but not sort of the usual tanniny notes, I want to say.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of French oak in a way, which is not going to be helpful to people who
Hmm.
haven't done cask exploration, and is another reason, by the way, why I wanted to get the Dewar's French oak finished
Hmm.
thing that you have, which I don't have. Because I think that the Mizunara and the French oak side by side would be really interesting. That French oak is probably ex cognac, though,
It is ex Calvados, which is
right?
French apple brandy.
So you're gonna have that apple brandy influence in the flavor profile as well. You won't necessarily get the wood in isolation. An exploration of the different kinds of oak is hard to find a true side by side. It just
I
is.
think I think just to do this, we should start a distillery.
Yeah, and then we'll do all the experiments and we'll know, and we won't release any of those products because a lot of them aren't good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, probably.
Welcome to the world of distilling. I imagine that conversation and that series of experiments has happened at no fewer than several dozen distilleries.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But what would you say about this in terms of tasting notes? I don't know. It has kind of a buttery sort of thing on the nose,
Hmm.
like sort of like buttery pastry, not like buttered
Like it's
popcorn. There's a fun thing that happens in heavily peated French oak whiskey. Smells like buttered popcorn jelly beans, like the Jelly Bellies, like the butter popcorn flavor. It's bizarre. Not smells, tastes like the Jelly Bellies buttered popcorn flavor. Bizarre.
so on the nose. I'm getting like a really um. So the probably actually know what they're called. They're like little puff pastries that are like dipped in like dark chocolate and then rolled in confectioner sugar.
Oh, I do know what they are. Well, they're choux pastry puffs, but you're thinking of the French word for nuns or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Those things they
yeah,
do on the Bake Off all the time.
yeah.
What's that thing
That
called? Choux pastry dipped in chocolate.
with- they're like they're light, puffy, and a little bit crunchy because of the way the pastry dough like crisps up. And then they've got
Profiterole?
that
Is that it?
maybe.
Mary
but
Berry's
it's
chocolate
got that like
profiteroles. I think that's
probably. But it's got that like buttery, that like rich dark cocoa, and like just a hint of like kind of the oaky, tanniny stuff.
here. Let's use the
And that
slideshow that we haven't used at all today. I'm gonna put this here and go find the thing to show it. Uh, yeah, here. These things. Oh, I could make that bigger and like focus on the actual dessert.
man, now I'm hungry.
Come on, make it bigger. There we go. These guys.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, profiteroles, or so, I have no idea how to pronounce it.
Mhm.
But anyway, now that we figured out what that is, I don't know that I taste that. Like I kind of get where you're coming from, but like I don't know if this goes choux pastry with cream filling and chocolate for me. I think it's mostly just the for me it's like
I'm not
uh
getting the cream filling. It's like the butter and the dark chocolate with
yeah,
like
I might say
the
like a pain au chocolat, like for me it's more like a croissant with a little bit of chocolate in it.
yeah.
So like the same idea, I guess, but more butter
Yeah, for
for
some
me.
reason, what I was thinking of was basically like a butter heavy pastry that's puffed and crisped, nothing inside of it, and then dipped in like dark chocolate
Right.
and confectioner sugar.
It's like a
And I,
donut.
yeah, except less oily and much lighter.
Yeah.
And
So
and
David says cream puffs. Yeah, that would be the English term that we're not trying too hard, but yeah.
yeah,
It is for sure chocolatey on the palate.
hmm
It's specifically the kind of chocolate that you would put on a donut or a confection of some sort. It's creamy. It's like dark
yeah,
chocolate, but it's been made to be a creamy dippable chocolate or spreadable chocolate.
yeah, yeah. I really like this stuff. I don't know why I haven't consumed more of it.
Honestly, same. Like I think I got this and I had some and I was like that's really good. I need to save it, which is like a dumb impulse that I have a lot.
I will say, my least favorite of the five of the finished Dewars is actually the illegal smooth, which I'm told is a lot of people's favorites or favorite.
I really liked it, but I also was coming from that context of mezcal is what got me back into single malt after I didn't like Dewars all those years ago.
Yeah,
So for me, it's only fair for us to include a little taste of this right now. I see you
yeah,
haven't enjoyed it very much because your bottle's almost entirely full.
yeah. Like I said, it was one of those like I flat out didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. So for me, this has kind of like, if I remember right, you know those like big green peppers that you grill? Not bell peppers, but
Uh,
like,
the poblano.
yes, poblano peppers. That's what this tasted like to me. Like it has just a little bit of smoke where you're not entirely sure if it's coming from the Scotch or the mezcal component.
Yeah, yeah,
And having had the unaged illegal mezcal, I feel like it's more the Scotch than the mezcal because that mezcal is not that smoky. It's also not that interesting. Something
hmm
about this, I think what makes me like this so much is that this combination of the mezcal cask with this whiskey made both of them better. Like the ideal pairing.
interesting. See, one of the major notes that I get on this, or prominent notes, is like raisin bran.
Now you totally nailed it. Now that you've said it, I can't not taste it. Completely right. The bran and
Mhm.
the raisiny sort of flavor and that sugar and the little cinnamony thing it's got going on, it's all there.
Mhm.
Is that why you don't like it?
No,
Okay.
it's that after it's in my mouth and like I swallowed it, the finish is like like really bitter and sort of like it tastes to me like the bitterant that they use on gaming console cartridges to get you to not put them in your mouth, which coincidentally just made dumb teenagers go, "It can't be that bad."
Let's try it. No, I am
Yeah.
aware. I'm aware that this exists, and not because of teenagers on TikTok or whatever, but because I had a coworker with a baby. Coworker who loved Nintendo. Coworker who loved Nintendo, who had an infant around the time the Nintendo Switch came out. So of course he wanted to taste the cartridge to see what that was all about before he potentially let it in the toddler's
Yeah.
mouth. Um, and he said it's quite bad. I
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah.
personally tasted that. So I don't have the context to relate to you on that.
I will say I know more than one person who was like, "Oh no, that's pretty good actually."
Maybe I'll be that type.
Which
Because I drink black coffee and whiskey. I used to think of whiskey as bitter. Actually, on that matter, I used to think of coffee as bitter, but like as you get into
yeah.
the better stuff, like yes, bitterness is a core component, but it's a well-balanced bitterness, both on the coffee and
Yeah.
the whiskey. Like
Yeah,
alcohol is
now
bitter,
I'm
there's no getting around that. But look at all these other flavors.
just just the mental image of just throwing like grilled poblanos in your raisin bran just
Herc. But actually it works. It works here.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
does.
I
But yeah,
mean,
no, you're totally right. Raisin bran and poblano peppers, that's what this is. It's got that nice roasty, toasty, smoky, charcoal grilled peppers
mhm.
and scotch. And somehow that combination makes raisin bran. Wild.
Interestingly, I do think this at least seems considerably more smoky than the standard Dewar's White Label.
It does, and I think that's coming from the mezcal.
Yeah.
This makes me want to go grab. It's got to be right there in my closet. I kind of want to go. It's hard to have the it's hard to say I have this Dewar's illegal smooth and I also have the
Mhm.
illegal mezcal and I'm not going to bother to pour it. No, come on. Let's get real.
I mean, I I have on more than one occasion been like, "Oh yeah, oh you want to know about X, Y, or Z whiskey? It's been a little while since I've had some. Let me pour some so I can give you some good notes for it."
Yeah, totally. Although I think at some level when we have this many whiskeys and I'm pointing behind me like your shelf is behind me, but these shelves behind me are full of whiskey too. So
Oh yeah,
um, I just because I work here too, I don't want to actually have my whiskey on display because I'm on meetings sometimes.
that is fair. Oh man, when I interviewed for the
Oh, I
position that I
forgot to do. I don't know if you heard that bottle pop because I've got the noise filter on the microphone. But here we have and you wouldn't somehow I don't know the font is the same, I guess, but it's also a pretty standard serif font.
yeah,
What I
yeah.
remember is this was peppery, but not that smoky. I think I just nosing the bottle that holds up. So we'll see.
When I interviewed for the job that I currently have, um, I turned my computer around because I had it set up on my bar like I have it now, with a backdrop of whiskey. And when I
Hmm.
interviewed for the job that I currently have now, because I had to do a Zoom interview, I turned my camera around so it was pointed the other way, and I had basically a shelf full of instrument cases behind me.
Which
Uh, is much better
much better than
than
whiskey.
yeah. Um,
I don't. That's not bad at
and
all. Like I don't know why that would
no,
be a problem. I guess was it messy?
no, no.
Okay.
It was intentional, like so I basically just so that I wouldn't have a background of whiskey.
Hmm.
Um, because I didn't know that for sure that I could blur my background.
Uh huh.
Um, and um,
Yeah, I've learned my background anyway because I still have all these samples lined up over here. I tried putting them
um,
away and I ran out of space. Samples like
w-
those little, they're only 2 inches tall, so they don't take up much shelf space, but they take up a lot of real estate. I don't know
yeah,
what to do with
because
them.
stack them.
Right. I've tried to come up with a stacking solution, and they just kind of those like stackable bins are usually not tall enough to hold the sample bottles.
Hmm.
Is basically the problem, or they are tall enough, and the shelf is not tall enough to fit two of them. This is the
Right.
problem I have over here. So over here, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can see that. I have
Yeah.
two bins full of American single malt samples that used to be on that desk to my left.
Yeah.
Um, and there's not enough room up here to stack these two bins.
Oh.
So, bummer.
Um. Anyway, and I have just realized, sort of looking across the room, I would not be able to do that right now.
Your collection is expanded into all available space.
I mean, not quite all available space, but across the way, the bottom shelf is no longer cornet cases. It is now whiskey.
Did you sell those off or
No, they are currently in my closet.
okay.
I'm avoiding selling my cornets. I
Yeah.
love them so much.
The number of things we have in common, Phil, right? The closet directly behind my computer is full to the brim with instrument cases, but I play stringed instruments.
Yeah, I I need to play more.
Me too.
I I have a wonderful collection of antique cornets and trumpets. The oldest of which was manufactured in 1916. Um, the same make and model as the one that my grandfather played. Oh, speaking of which, because I think you'll find this amusing, that same grandfather was in the Navy during the Second World War, assigned to SACO, Sino-American Cooperative Organization, and was stationed in Chongqing and Shanghai during the war.
If I'm not mistaken, Chongqing is now known as Chongqing, right?
I do not know. I will be totally honest. All the information that I have on where he was stationed was from the mouth of at the time, 88 or 89-year-old man who never spoke any Chinese. Um, the, he used to joke that the only Chinese he could read was men's room, women's room, do not enter, and trespassers will be shot.
You know what's funny? Well,
Hmm.
I guess those are good things to know.
Yeah.
Things like caution signs and like do not enter and all that sort of stuff. Like I know enough Chinese that people like expect me to understand some basics, which is basically roughly accurate. But like if they talk too
Yeah.
fast or they say things I don't know, like I have this weird thing where like I'm really into phonetics, so my accent
Right.
is actually pretty good, but my
Right.
vocabulary level is like early elementary. So like my accent leads people to believe they can say more to me than they can.
Yeah.
Because I mean, not that I spent an inordinate amount of time working on my accent, but just that like I took that as a first principle important thing.
And especially with tonal languages where tone is important, which I could be way off base, but I think Chinese is a tonal language.
It is. And Mandarin
So,
is actually light on the number of tones compared to other Asian tonal languages that are based in Chinese. Like Korean is technically like long in the past as a branch of a Chinese dialect because like as basically you would probably imagine like the Korean peninsula was like it was all that same sort of like language is regional more than country oriented, right?
mhm,
And Mandarin is like not entirely the case, but basically was kind of an invented language some centuries and centuries ago to
mhm,
unify. It was mostly based on like the ruling dynasty at the time, but it was also a standardization of that everyone was meant to be able to speak. So they simplified it
mhm.
in a lot of ways, is my understanding. Um, Also that whole thing about like Peking duck, right?
Right.
You've heard Peking duck. Peking duck is Beijing duck.
Yeah.
It's literally the same thing. It's just a different transliteration of Mandarin because they didn't used to have the current transliteration system.
Mhm,
And I always wondered how was it that they have this sound that in English we say is like a CH sound. It's a little
right.
different though. But like in South China, the sound K and Q don't
Mhm,
or J. J and Q are like the voiced and unvoiced version of the same thing. How are
Interesting.
those sounds a K? How is that even close? Like, how could you possibly mix that up? But having been to Beijing, their accent there, somehow they've managed to do it where, like, you just barely intelligibly, it's that sound that
Mhm.
I learned, but it's also way closer to a K.
So I will say I get the impression, Doug, that you are much like me, a little bit of a vocal chameleon, because I notice that you have a tendency when we are streaming your I don't want to say accent, but your speaking cadence sort of matches with the people around you.
Mm.
And so you and I have a tendency to match Ian because he does less of the shift, and I sort of I joke that it's a like survival tactic, being able to fit in and talk like anyone. Um, so like I'll be on the phone with someone who's calling from Georgia who's just looking for a real good amplifier, and I see you've got one installed. Now I've got exactly what you're looking for, sir, and I can help you with that, no problem. But it's sort of a listening and responding in kind sort of thing.
And mostly as long as you can do it authentically. Yeah, no, I relate to
Yeah.
what you're saying. There was a point in college where I became aware um, that I was doing that, and I became really self-conscious about it. And I don't think anybody ever really thought anything weirdly about it. Like,
Hmm.
thought that I was like appropriating like a group accent or whatever, but like, it's just easy to do. I grew up in New Jersey, and then I moved to Texas. And I've always kind of been in the city, so this is my like my sort of neutral American Midwest accent is how I speak. But
Right.
my parents, when they visited me where I went to school in Central Texas, separate from Houston, right? I had what was maybe a Houstonish accent when I was in Houston. When they visited me in Austin, I had a Central Texas accent,
Yeah.
kind of. And I was like, I honestly don't even know. Like, I guess I talk like my roommate now, but like, I honestly don't know what you're talking about. To my ears, I wasn't even aware that there was an accent difference.
So I I discovered it because there was somebody that I hung out with at school in high school who was a military kid, but his father's last station was in Texas, and he had grown up in rural Texas, and he did not have a lot of an accent, but he had a little bit of it. And one of the things that he did was he talked real long, like just drew words out. That's called a Texas drawl. And I'd be talking to him and I'd match him because that's just how he talked. And somebody would go, "How do you do that? How do I do what? How do you like copy him so effectively?" And it's like, I don't know. I'm just talking to him. And he never noticed that I was doing it. I didn't initially notice that I was doing it. And then I used that skill to do voices for D&D because I'm a dungeon master, and being able to like have like a random, oh yeah, you've gone and found a Scottish dwarf smith who's going to help you fix your stuff, or
By the way, I like how you read the Dewar's white label as they read it in the ads.
that wasn't intentional. I didn't mean to do it, and I tried to stop halfway through because it's like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Um,
Yeah, I get what you
but
mean. You've made me
you know,
self-conscious about it again. I'm
I'm
gonna try
sorry.
not to think too much about it. Yeah,
Um,
anyway, I don't even where was I on these are the
you're
whiskeys. Oh yeah, I
looking at
have over here on my left, I have the Dewar is illegal, and I have the illegal mezcal. Pretty good. Pretty good mezcal. What I remember though, when I was drinking more mezcal about 2 years ago, um, I don't know, I just kind of entirely stopped drinking mezcal ish. I have a really
hmm,
fancy mezcal or two that I bought not at auction, but like on special offer from a specialty
yeah,
spirits its website. Um,
yeah,
which like I tend to conflate in my brain. I did like two auctions ever. And even then, I had somebody else who had an account with them bidding for me, and I like paid them after the fact.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess like everything I've actually personally bought online has been retailers. But anyway, so I have 5 or 6 different mezcals, um, or things that are agave spirits that are not necessarily tequila or mezcal or whatever, but made from agave. Um, really good specialty stuff. Pretty good other stuff. Some people say like this Hikaru mezcal reposado that I have.
Hmm.
One of my favorites is cocktail tier. It has like just enough oak influence to like it has that nice touch of vanilla, but it also still is that smoky um
Yeah.
vegetal, like that nice stuff. It's a nice well-rounded mezcal. Like I guess there's nothing specialty about it, and that's what makes it cocktail tier. Like it's a
Yeah.
mezcal. That's fine. This one's a little more opinionated on. It's very vegetal and peppery,
Hmm.
but it's not smoky at all. Like if I walked into mezcal saying like, "Oh, mezcal has to be smoky," this doesn't really do it. Like it suggests smoke by way of pepper and peppers and
Hmm.
cooked, but it is not smoky the way that the Hikaru mezcal reposado was. Um, it had the same kind of like iodine medicinal thing that Isla whiskey has,
Hmm.
like kind of on the in the same realm of like kind of a clean medicinal smoke like Port Charlotte, kind of in that area, but like a little bit tamped down. But when I was coming from no smoky spirits whatsoever to that was my
Yeah.
first one
Yeah.
after years and years and years, I was like, oh, that's smoky. Mezcal is really cool. I should try smoky Scotch again because apparently I like smoky spirits. This is not that. This is, you know,
Yeah.
vegetal and whatever. So the smoke that's coming from the Dewars is like being accentuated by the cooked vegetal notes of the mezcal and maybe
Hmm.
the barrel. But like the smoke inherent in the whiskey, like the mezcal draws it out, makes it more obvious. I personally really like this. When I first opened up the bottle, I had 2 glasses of it that evening, which is not something I often do. And by glasses, I mean like a full ounce or ounce and a half each time.
Oh wow.
I
Yeah.
haven't drank this in a good long while, but like within a few months of opening this bottle, I used about half of it, which is that's a pretty fast clip for me. I don't go
Yeah.
through spirits that quickly, generally speaking. And then I just kind of stopped at some point. And I stuck it in the back of my. I think I moved and like I reorganized my shelf, and it kind of ended up at the back, and then I forgot about it. So like that's a takeaway for our listeners. If you've got a nice whiskey collection and you tend to reach for the things in the front, do yourself a favor and rotate. Like
Hmm.
rotate the arrangement of your shelf so the things that are usually in the back come to the front. Um, I try to arrange my shelf intentionally with like the things that I want in the front that I want to be drinking more of. So since I just did a little bit of this, I will make a point of. I guess I'm going to show off a little bit. I want to be drinking these SMWS bottles, so I put them pretty obviously. I've got a spring bank that I need to drink more of
Ooh.
because, like, it's the sort of thing that you hoard, but if you stick it at the back of your closet, can you hear me, by the way?
I can.
Um, I've got the rest of a bottle of Kilhoman that I need to remember to finish. This is a Macure Bay from, if I'm not reading the code wrong, it's from 2018.
Oh, okay. It's a few years old at this point.
Yeah, it's like
5 years old.
one of the early batches, and I got that from a friend who's moving out of town. So that's
So
that was a bottle he had open. So like he had almost finished it, but he needed to give it away. Anyway, I
I
think
lost
have
the
we
train of thought.
could Dewars at this point? Like
Yeah.
we have to do
Yeah.
some
I think
heavy
so.
editing if we're going to turn this into a review video.
Yeah. I think we need Ian to help us keep on track
Probably.
because I'm terrible at it.
You know, we're figuring it out. Hey, it's 10:15, but do you want to fuck around a little bit?
What do you want to do?
Uh, so I have there's this game that's been circulating around the internet. Here, I think I still have our 2 faces on top of the slideshow view. Oh, except you're oh crap. Because that was when we had the 3 faces. Let me see if I can real quick.
Right.
let me real quick grab the current view for you that we have here, and gonna do this overlay, but I'm gonna hide that, and then I'm gonna put this one in, and I'm gonna make this the right size. I'm doing all this off stream, like it's the
Yeah.
stream planner view, I guess.
Yeah.
Preview. Yeah. All right, there's a slideshow. Don't read too much into it. Here is the password game. If David is still listening, David, do you know about this yet? Because if you don't, I'm gonna share this with our. If you in the gaming Discord have not messed around with this game yet, I need to share it with you immediately because it's hilarious. Okay, choose a password. There are no rules. Andrew shared this. Yeah, that makes sense. This is the kind of thing Andrew would share. I'm actually kind of surprised Justin didn't share it. But anyway. All right, choose a password. Just throw some random stuff in there. Must include a number. Okay, easy. Uppercase letter. A special character. Gonna go with yeah, Phill, you should watch the stream because I'm gonna ask you for help at some point.
I'm watching the stream, but it's a few seconds behind, so I'm sort of filling in the blanks mentally as
Let me zoom in too.
as I need to. Numbers must add up to 25. So we've got a 1, so 24.
It's by digits though, so if I put 24, it only adds up to 11. It's showing over here.
Right.
So I'm gonna put some 5s in. Oh
You know
no,
what's
it's
funny?
this is the length of the password so far. Okay, hold on. Okay, 555 20
So that's
25.
15. Yeah. So
Okay.
3 times 5 is 15, so we need
Okay,
include a month of the year.
month of the year.
July is short.
Yeah, let's do that. Oops. July. Must include a Roman numeral. X. Include one of our sponsors. I'm gonna go with Shell.
That's a good one.
Oh, it has L's in it. Wait, hold on. No, oh, never mind. It's not using the L's because they're lowercase.
Multiply. So I would change it to the X to a capital V.
Yeah.
And then 5 times 7, so IV.
It's VII, right? But I guess it has to be uppercase.
Oh yeah,
VII.
VII.
Okay, cool. Include the captcha. I don't remember this part. Is that an R or just a squiggle? Let's go with BE3HP. No? Let's put that R. No? What? Oh, maybe that's a B. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Digits must add up to 20. Hold on. Huh?
Oh.
Wait. Is it highlighting the wrong letter? It might be.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's still highlighting the wrong. Okay, hold on.
Weird.
Okay, because that's not the captcha anymore. Okay, we have to have the 3. We got to subtract 3 from something.
So
there we
turn
go.
the 4 into a 1. Oh.
Okay. You want to play some Wordle?
Let's do that, I guess. Oh man, I'm not great with words. This is gonna be fun.
Okay, Wordle. Who's got a good like Wordle starter word?
My mom starts with raise, RAI.
SE.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 All right. Let's try to do one that doesn't have any of those letters in it. So I'm gonna do cloud. Okay, we have a D. So we have an R and a D, and I is the middle letter, and E is the end letter. I kind of want to get more information. What did you say?
Drive. DRIVE.
Okay. Oh, that's probably it. No, okay, so that was not it. Okay, so
Okay.
D has to be in the 4th position.
Right.
Oh, I bet it's bride.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, now we have that.
And all lowercase
Let's do all
in our
lowercase. That's
password.
going to work better for Okay, must include a 2-letter symbol from the periodic table. Let's pick neon.
Yeah. What is neon?
NE.
Ah.
Your password must include the current phase of the moon as an emoji.
Oh.
Current phase of the moon
Is it full?
is a waning gibbous. Okay.
Okay.
Waning copy. Waning gibbous emoji. Okay. Cool. Shit. Your password must include the name of this country. I don't know, this could be the United States because it has shell. I don't know. Oh no, those are not yeah, those are not American gas prices. Could this be Mexico? Let's try Mexico.
Yes.
No. Other South American countries? Brazil.
Every journey has
Peru.
a
Really? They're not.
Puerto
Oh, Brazil
Rico?
has a. But they use dollars there, don't they?
Oh, true. That is very true.
Colombia. No. All right.
I'm trying to think
Let's
of.
look around. We can do more here.
I'm thinking about Latin American countries that use a lot of English. They've.
Sarah's. I wonder if we could like look up this restaurant. Sarah's cheesy. All right, let's just check that out. Sarah's cheesy. Maybe I need to like look on Google Maps. I mean, this says Massachusetts, but like that's Sarah's Cheesecake Shop. Hmm. Let's look for more information here. Maybe it's not just Latin America. Like, what if it's the Philippines?
That is a good.
Yep.
That was a good call. I didn't even think of that.
I was thinking like the way that the stall is set up, that sort of looked like it might be Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, look at the art on the gate. That would have been my giveaway.
Huh.
What tripped it for me.
I guess we could have looked at the country code and the phone numbers too. But anyway, okay,
Oh
we
yeah.
figured it out.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that I spelled Philippines correctly. All right.
Oh,
E3 is apparently somewhere in the password and is wrong. No, that's not fair because that's the CAPTCHA.
oh yeah.
Ah, shit. Do I have to like get a new CAPTCHA? Ugh. Ugh. Okay.
Oh no. Oh no.
Digits must add up to 25. Okay.
Got
6, 7. I feel like we need to like get rid of all the numbers and just like start over again. Must add up to 25. We're required to have. Why did I put this 4 here?
to make one of the other numbers work because we
Oh,
had a 1.
okay. So I added the number. I'm just gonna get rid of that now. This. I'm just gonna put a dot here. Why not? It's not gonna hurt anything. 7, 4 is 11, so I need to do 11. But that's that. Did I do it? No. That's 11. Oh, 3 more. Yes. Must include this CAPTCHA. I did it backwards. 4, 7. Oh, it was there actually. 4, 7.
E4P.
Okay, I got it.
And then
And now I've
E4 is an
screwed up.
illegal move.
4, 7, E4P. I need to get rid of these. There we go. Wait. How did we solve that? That was somehow an accident? I guess 4 is a leap year?
I guess.
Okay, cool. All right. First of all, what's the best move? And we'll figure out the algebraic notation later. And then maybe it'll not bother us about the illegal moves if we put the right one in somewhere.
All right. I don't know. I don't know anything about chess.
Okay, king is here. But whose move is it? Oh, white to move. Okay, thanks. Okay, best move is going to be the one that puts the king in check, I think. So probably queen to d8. So like I think qd8 is the right way. Invalid notation. d5 d8.
D8 is an illegal move.
I think it's illegal move? How?
I don't know.
I think there's like there's something about putting you in check. All right, let's read the thing.
So white has castled, which is interesting.
I don't know if it matters for whether a move that places the opponent's king in check usually has a symbol plus appended. Okay. That was it. I had to put that it's a check. I think I need to get rid of... Yep. Okay. Cool. We have a new rule. This is my chicken Paul. He hasn't hatched yet. Put him in your password and keep him safe. All right. I've seen this. This is a copy paste. We're going to put it there.
Gotcha.
Oh, shit. The elements in your password must have atomic numbers that add up to 200.
What? Okay, we've got uranium.
Add up to... Okay, so we don't need this to be a U. We can change this to something else.
Yeah.
It has to be... We need an uppercase... No, we have uppercase letters because of Roman numerals, so I'm just going to make it a lowercase u.
All right.
And then we won't have to worry about that one. Maybe we're going to want to. I don't know. Okay, so...
I don't know enough of the periodic table to...
Okay, V is 23. I'm going to have to write this down somewhere. Okay, V is 23. We've got another V and an I and an I. What is I? Is iodine.
Okay.
53. Somehow V seems like it should have a higher number. Yeah. Okay, we've got 2 of those. Where are we at? 152. What else we got? Got neon.
P.
Neon atomic number. 10. Okay. I like how this page isn't helping us at all with like adding these things up or anything. Yeah. Okay, what else do we got? P.
Was that phosphorus?
Phosphorus? Phosphorus atomic number is 15, okay. And now we need something that adds up to the rest. So we need 23. Luckily, we already have that, and that's V.
Which is also a Roman numeral.
Oh, shit. Oh no. Okay, hold on. Let's do another neon, which is 10.
And then what is atomic number
13.
13?
Atomic number 13. Hopefully it doesn't have any Roman numerals. Aluminum is Al. Okay.
All right.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna copy this. I don't know if that's gonna help, but I'm gonna copy it. Can I paste? No, you're not allowed to paste here. Okay. All right. Vowels need to be bold. Busy work.
Yay.
Y is a vowel? No, sir. At least it's showing us in red.
Yeah.
This would be even worse busy work. Can I?
Could you imagine
Okay,
if
I don't have to
it
click the button. I can do the hotkey. Oh,
if it
all the vowels must be bold, but it doesn't say only vowels. I could have just bolded the whole thing.
oh
Oh shit. Okay.
oh no.
Did we have a
Oh.
V somewhere? There we go. Okay, cool. Oh, somehow we lost our sponsor. Shell all lowercase, make that bold. Okay, next rule. Password's not strong enough. Uh, really? Put no. Okay, we're getting worse. Hold on. There's an emoji here. Can I delete all this? The letters were a problem. Okay. Let's put there we go. Okay, that was it. Cool. What if I make it stronger? That's fine. Okay, let's affirm ourselves. I
Yes.
am enough.
No caps.
Yeah, no caps. Paul is hatched. Feed him 3 worms every minute. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit more. All right, we're on a timer now. Oh no! You want to help me out with this one?
Yeah, let me see what I can find.
I guess I should go look too. Uh, I feel like YouTube is probably at this point filled with videos of different lengths just to solve this game. Not that. 23 minutes and what was it? Okay, close that. Close that. 23 minute 14 seconds. Okay. This video is not exactly, it said it on the thumbnail, but all right, does it? Okay, it's fine. It's close enough. It's fine. It's fine. The digits, all the vowels must be bold. Okay. I'm just gonna bold this whole thing. It's gonna be fine. Oh no. We have a lot more atomic numbers now. All right. Do I have to find another? Oh shit. Uh, don't die, Paul. Okay. All right. For the digits, I have to get rid of 16. You still with me, Phill? Oh, I think you're muted or something. Is that my fault? OBS is not showing any audio coming from you. I was going to say it's possibly because I played a YouTube video by accident. How you doing on a audio reset there, Phill? Oh shoot, no! I let Paul start. Okay. I think that's enough for tonight. And on that great disappointment. Hey, go visit us at the Whiskey Lodge, which conveniently is cut off perfectly by my face. Phill, we can't hear you, so I'm just gonna say, let's just throw in the towel and call it a night. Cheers, and until next week on Wednesday when I'll be on Embellish Pod, or Thursday when we'll be back again to stream. Until then, we'll see you in the lodge. Sláinte.